It seems to be a little quieter. You're up. Yeah.
Welcome everyone to North Ogden City Council. Meeting will now come to order. It's a pleasure to see you here this evening, and we'll begin the meeting with an invocation and pledge allegiance by Council Member Swanson.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity to meet here together as residents and neighbors. Thankful for this great country in which we live, grateful for the government that we have, thankful for our opportunity to participate. Pray for a spirit of peace and neighborliness to be with us tonight as we discuss and make decisions. And this we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are 4 items on the consent agenda. Council, if there's any discussion or questions. If none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is public comments, and in regard to item 9, we will reserve, if you got any public comments regarding that item, we'll reserve it until that time so that we have some clarification on that particular item. So if there's other public comments that anybody would like to make at this time, please come forward, state your name and address.
It's Deborah Bennett, 1763 North, 900 East. I took a walk around Orton Park, around the track Sunday evening, and there was trash all over the place. And I know there's soccer games that are played all day long. And if it's the soccer teams or the spectators that are going there to watch them, to me, they should be required to clean up the trash before they leave or lose privileges, because it's ruining it for everyone else, the trash that's all over. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you for your comment.
It's just a concern of mine because I love this city. It's a beautiful city, and I hate to see trash and graffiti and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Gary Atterbury. I live at 3012 North, 175 West in North Ogden. Folks, in the past month, all of you who are candidates for the council election in your write-up stated that your utmost determination was to have total transparency. Is there anybody that's against total transparency? Okay. Section 2 of the pond paperwork states that North Ogden City will provide acreage for the pond. Question 1, how much is that going to cost us?
That's a question that'll be entertained later in the agenda.
Okay. I hope you'll take down the questions, Annette. From the paperwork that I haven't been able to find amount or the agreed upon price with the seller. Phil, earlier when the pond was being discussed, I messaged you about the finances to see how we were going to pay for this venture. Your reply was that we had cash in reserves and to pay for everything, and there would be no bonding. Also, that our reserves were at or near the maximum amount allowed by the state. When I was told that earlier this year, during a budget meeting, it was stated that we needed nearly $700,000 to balance the budget. I was told at that time your first response was to raise taxes, but you were able to make enough cuts to balance it. $2 million in reserves, as you told me, compared to minus $700,000 needed to balance the budget, is a huge difference. Question 2, where did you get that $700,000? Did that come out of the $2 million reserve? Phil, question 3.
Mayor, if I may interject, is this a personal question session or is this public comments?
Well, I'm just questioning what you told me.
Okay.
Okay? Question 3, where are we right this minute? Do we have $2 million in reserves? The people of North Ogden deserve to know before any vote, don't you think? For transparency, you guys all agreed on? Section 4 said that there will be a publicly noticed meeting for the expenditures. Question 4, don't you think that, Section 4 said, and question 4 is, don't you think that that should be done again, being this has been in the works for 2 years? We ought to know now where we are. Section 4 also talks about utility fees, rental fees, and general tax revenues for upkeep and maintenance. Section 6 states that the joint sponsors are pursuing funds from sources such as Utah Board of Water Resources loans, irrigation impact fees, irrigation annual assessment fees, Weber County ramp funds, stormwater utility fees, and North Ogden City general funds. Now, as I understand it, all of these fees, with the exception of the ramp funds, either come from the citizens or have to be paid for by the citizens, don't they? Question 5, for transparency's sake, don't you council members think that we deserve to know what the pond is really going to cost us? Question 6, and why do we need another detention basin? The paperwork says that North Ogden City currently has 57 catch basins in our city. And with the exception of the one between 2550 North and 2750 North, I believe that all are located in residential areas for the purpose of catching excess runoff water to keep from flooding. Question 7. Why are we building another basin down on the flat that will only benefit the people below North Ogden City? Question 8. Why are we paying for it? Also in Section 6, it states that, quote, most of the piping for the unit is currently in place. Only a few pipes near the pump house will need to be installed, close quote. What was the original purpose of the pre-existing piping that is already in place? Question 7. Is this the piping that the city spent $500,000 on for a project that wasn't even approved, that you were going to try to approve tonight? Transparency. Mr. Severing, Ms. Stoker, Mr. Turner, Mr. Swanson. I don't understand how with total transparency you folks, as our city council, could authorize $500,000 expenditure on a program that doesn't exist. Early on Facebook, when I questioned this expenditure, Mr. Swanson explained it to me this way, and I quote, Gary, I simply leave the facts for all to see and make their own judgment. At the time the piping installation was approved, the existing detention pond was under contract to be sold to JWC Mercer. Given what appeared to be an imminent sale of the property and the fortuitous timing with the Montessori school construction, which allowed the pipe to be installed without unusual disruption, the entire council felt it best to move forward with the piping. Unfortunately, none of the council members' crystal balls were working that night.
They weren't.
I'm very upset that you speak down to me
Are you going
demeaning.
to finish the comment?
Yep,
Finish the whole quote?
that's closing the quote.
Oh, no, there was more after that.
Bring it up. You're welcome to.
I'm not going to get into an argument with you.
I was too angry after that to continue. I would have thought that at least one of you would have had the knowledge or common sense to stop it. And Phil, earlier in the week, you explained to me that our democratic republic type of government is set for us citizens to elect people we trust to make these types of decisions for our city. Personally, people who use crystal balls to make decisions I don't trust with my taxes. Question 10. So the deal wasn't done, and our council decided to throw $500,000 into someone else's property, correct?
Excuse me, Mr. Atterbury, but your 5 minutes is up for public comment.
I've got a lot of information here that needs to be asked.
Okay? Thank you for your comment.
Alvin Thurgood, 3030 North, 425 East. I'd like to volunteer my time to Gary Atterbury to hear the rest of his bullet points.
Thanks, son. Happened to me before. Question number 11. Do we have an easement for the pipe on the Double Lot Ranch? We got one for the Montessori, or is that our pipe just sitting under their land free? The letter from Mayor Taylor stated, a secondary purpose for this facility will be recreational use, which will provide recreational opportunities for thousands of families in our city and surrounding cities. Question 12. How much has Harrisville and Pleasant View agreed to contribute for this park construction and upkeep? Question 13. Has anyone done a projection on how the free swimming at the pond is going to affect North Shore's income? Any ideas? Question 14. Who gains from this and who loses? I understand that the federal grant is not ours. We're only co-applicants, and the developer is being given special consideration like R4 zoning, which allows 20 units per acre times 34 acres, which means that we will eventually end up with 680 apartment units with this one development. I know they say we're not going to put that many, but who's going to cut their profits? Question 15. What is the cost per acre to the city that we are required to donate for the project? 15A. How can we determine the cost to the city if we don't know the price of the land? I also understand that all impact and water fees will be waived for this builder, and he is being allowed to count the pond as green space for the development so he can maximize the number of units in the complex. Question 16, why? Question 17, are any other builders getting these kinds of breaks from North Ogden City? You know that the master plan for putting Monroe Boulevard through is to require the developer to make a part of their project cost. If the builder wants to develop this project, let him pay for it. Question 18, will the pond be stream fed or just a slough? The plan says that the reason for the detention reservoir is to hold the high volume of water from Side Canyon, Mountain Water Canyon, Willow Canyon, Barrett Canyon, and Pine Canyon. Do all of these drain into the North Ogden Weber Basin Canal? The canal has to be at least a half a mile away from that detention basin as floodwaters flow. As I said, the report says that the piping is almost already in place. I understand that the city has already installed $500,000 worth of pipe at my expense. And the project hasn't even been authorized by the city council. Question 19, who gave the authorization to spend $500,000 for the pipe and labor? Talking about transparency. I've walked along the North Ogden Canal many times, and I don't recall any piping large enough to carry floodwaters. Before we spend our city's money, for transparency's sake, we need some answers. In the past, there were two votes, and both were voted down 3-2. To bring it back, it seems that at least one of those negative votes has to change their mind, his or her mind, and call for readdress. For transparency, question 11. I would like an in-depth explanation on what has caused the change of thought. Is it to cover for the at least questionable expenditure on the already laid pipe? I think that for transparency purposes, there are at least 20 questions and probably a whole lot more to answer before any vote is taken. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. No clapping, please.
I'd like to submit a letter in support of North Ogden passing a resolution in support of the House
Give
bill.
your name and address, please.
Mitch Drews, 2073 North, 225 East, North Ogden. So this is in support of the Utah House Bill 411 for net sustainability of sustainable energy for the communities in Utah. Ogden had a meeting Thursday on this I went to, but I just have a letter in support of that. I don't know if you've thought about that, joining that list of communities. I think Park City, Salt Lake City, and Moab have joined, and it's to have the city reach sustainable energy by the year 2030, net 100. So anyway,
Which House bill did you say it was?
411.
Okay, thank you.
So, it has to be, you have to be adopted by December 31st, 2019, stating that the community will acquire renewable energy in amount equal to 100% of the community's energy use by 2030. Only communities that sign on by December 31st of this year will be able to opt into the program once a new renewable portfolio rates have been analyzed, set, and approved. Passing this resolution does not commit North Ogden City to the program, but means the city has the choice to lock in favorable long-term rates. Members of the community will be free to opt in or opt out individually. So it's, I could just leave this.
You leave that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to the agenda. Item 6, canvass of election results. Presenter,
Mayor.
pardon me, go ahead. I forgot about that.
Council, if it meets with your approval, we'd like to move item 13 to this point in the agenda, given the length that the rest of the meeting will probably take.
I'm okay with that.
Mayor, I'd move that we move item 13 to this point in the agenda.
Have a second?
Second.
Been moved and second, we move item 13. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item 13, discussion on Gold Star Family Sculpture. Presenter be council members Stoker and Swanson.
Start with.
Do what? Start with you?
Go ahead, whatever.
Okay, I'm going to let Phil lead out on this, and then I'll add comments.
I'm going to come down here so I can see the council. Council, I want to start by reading some names to you. Reed Campbell, James Barker, probably a relative, uncle, great uncle.
chance.
Something like that, probably a good chance. William Barrett, Lewis Brown, Dan Deneen, I think is how it's pronounced. Raymond Holmes, Clint Farron, Major Brent Taylor, Sergeant First Class Elliot Robbins, and Chief Petty Officer Jared Reeves. Just a partial list of names of individuals from North Ogden that have perished while serving in our military over the years. Some of these names I got off of the small plaques that we have over in Bicentennial Park. And what's being proposed is that a new monument be built here on the city property. Let me tell you just a little bit about it. Comes from the Herschel Woody Williams Medal of Honor Foundation and Initiatives. Say that one 5 times fast. Just a little bit about Herschel Woody Williams. He first became involved with the death of soldiers when he was a Union, Union Wire, Western Union telegram deliverer as a cab driver during World War II, and was delivering the messages home to families that soldiers had been lost. Later, Later, he witnessed, the families that had lost the soldiers in World War II and subsequent wars, the suffering and the difficulty and all that comes with being a Gold Star family. He says, the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument Project began as a way to honor and recognize Gold Star families for their enduring sacrifice while ensuring that their fallen heroes shall never be forgotten. The Herschel Woody Williams Medal of Honor Foundation is a charitable 501c3 nonprofit organization. The foundation encourages, with the assistance of the American public and community leaders, establishing permanent Gold Star families memorial monuments in communities throughout the country. And there are some other things that they do, but tonight we're talking about the Gold Star Memorial Monument. The foundation wishes to educate the community about the sacrifices these men and women have made, reminding us all that freedom has not and is not free. So since the start of this in West Virginia, when the first one went up, there are now a number of these monuments. There are 47 across the country, 51 in progress, none in Utah, not anywhere. The closest one is in Idaho. So what we would like, those of us that are involved with this, is our goal is to have a monument here in North Ogden, and then eventually go to the state and have one at the state capitol as well. John, you've got those pictures. You have a picture here of what the Gold Star Monument looks like. It's about 7.5-ish, 8 feet tall, 12-inch thick granite. It's beautiful. This is the front side that you would see. The area that we would like to locate this is right out here by the flagpole, facing towards 2600. So this front side would be facing 2600, right there by the flag. So this is the front side. John, if you can go to the next picture, please. This is an artist's rendering and a picture of, I believe that's Herschel right there in the right. Is that right, Jenny? Mm-hmm. In the shorter gentleman there. He is the founder. This is a picture of an actual monument there. So you have an idea of what it would look like. John, next slide, please. Another artist's rendering of what the monument would look like. Next. So this would be the backside. Is that right, Jenny? Yes. Backside. This is the backside of the monument. You can see where it says, my glasses are terrible, Homeland, Family, Patriot, and Sacrifice. And then there are images that are etched into the stone there that can be selected by our community. John, next slide. Can that be expanded at all? So this is a front and a rear, what you're seeing. So the top slide there, the top photograph, is what the monument would look like from the front. The bottom is what it would look like from the rear. the silhouette of a soldier is carved into the stone. I'd love to see the process that that's done by. Next picture, John.
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay. So, you know what the goal is. We'd like to have a monument here in North Ogden. The request, no cash, no money, simply permission for those that are going to raise the roughly $55,000 to have this built and have the granite done and taken care of, have permission to put this on the property right there by the flagpole, by the circular concrete. No cost to the city, just an allowance and an easement, whatever, John, legally would need to be done in order to allow this monument to stand there. We feel like this is the most central place where probably the most people in the city come to see and would be able to recognize those that throughout the years we are already working with the museum, North Ogden Museum, to get the names of as many of those who have fallen in battle and in service as we can. And then heaven forbid that this happens again in the future, which it most likely will. We have the opportunity to add additional names and recognize those families and the soldiers who have given their lives for our country. Questions?
So I think this is a great place, excuse me for it. One of the other things that I had thought of when I'd heard about this was it had been talked about, and it wasn't by the council members, it was somebody in the resident that brought it up, as naming the amphitheater Gold Star Amphitheater, and I thought maybe putting the monument over there. Now, I think it'd probably get more exposure here, but that may be something we could consider too, is a place over there. This isn't set in stone, no pun intended, that it's here, right?
But it's set in concrete once it's there, yes.
Right, so.
And you love concrete.
I do. So, I mean, this is just a suggestion, right? Well, we're not making a decision.
This is the preference, and
So-
we are asking for a decision tonight to give us permission to put it there. We feel like all those that are involved feel like this is the place where it will get the most recognition, the most daily visibility, and easiest for people to be drawn to it on a regular basis, whether you're coming to the police station for a ticket, Cheryl? She walks and rides her bike, she never gets a ticket.
I'm not, like I say, I'm not opposed to that.
Sure.
That was just a thought I had.
Right.
And then with it being as heavy as it's gonna be and stuff, there's probably gonna have to be some extra concrete work done and stuff, but that's
Yes.
all part of the.
And that's all part, the city takes care of none of that. It's all done by donations and through the foundation.
Well, I'm for one and for it.
City just needs to say, okay, we can do it, and then we take whatever legal action is
This
necessary.
is just for discussion, so, we can't really make a motion on it, but,
Other questions?
Questions, discussions, council?
How soon could we get started?
What was that, Jenny? A lot of work's already been done
Excellent.
and is on the way. So if council is amenable to that, then, John, if we could have this back on an agenda item where we can have a decision on it.
Okay. I mean, so in theory, in Utah law, anything on the agenda can be voted on. Historically, the council has always said it needs to say discussion and action. So it'd be up to the council. It's probably better to default to our standard,
that's what I would suggest.
so,
Okay, so we'll have it on our next meeting then as a decision item.
yep.
Thank you, council.
That'll be September 3rd.
And Cheryl had some comments.
I think it's a great way to honor our fallen and the families, and that it'll be seen by many, and a good way to remember them.
Thank you, council. Moving on, to item number 6, canvass of election results. This presenter will be Annette Spenlove, our city recorder, HR director.
I got the wrong document.
Okay, council, you are acting at this point as the canvassers of the election results. You have before you a summary report that shows you the number of registered voters. The total is 10,035. The ballots cast were 3,747. The voter turnout, therefore, was 37.34%. Page 2 of the summary report for the North Ogden City four-year term, North Ogden City Council. Phil Swanson received 1,681 votes. Ryan Barker received 1,514. Charlotte Ekstrom received 1,195. Randy Wynn received 1,153. Julie Anderson received 952. Ron Flam received 741. Meg Sanders received 694. Kevin Burns received 671. Michael Anaya received 646. And Terry Bexel received 586. So total votes cast were 9,833. For the two-year term for the North Ogden City Council, Cheryl Stoker received 1,719. Wade Carl Bigler received 986. Stephanie Casey received 901. 6 of the four-year term candidates will move on to the general election, so it will be the top 6: Philip Swanson, Ryan Barker, Charlotte Ekstrom, Randy Wynn, Julie Anderson, and Ronald Flam. For the two-year term, 2 will move on. That will be Cheryl Stoker and Wade Carl Bigler. On to your next page. Election day voters, there were 123, that's 3.3%. By mail early provisional ballots, there were 3,624, 96.7%. So most of our voters were by mail. And that was for the total of 3,747, 37.3%. By mail ballot summary, ballots mailed, 10,035. Ballots returned and counted, 3,624. Ballots returned undeliverable, 290. That's 2.9%. That could be due to wrong addresses, or people have moved and not given us their correct addresses. Ballots not counted, 44. The reason those ballots were not counted, 26 were returned past the deadline, 4 were returned unsigned. Signatures did not match the voter record, 14 of those, so that was a total of 44. We had 5 provisional ballots cast. The other sheets just tell you from what precinct, where those votes came from, and what voters received those votes in the precinct, in those certain precincts. This will all be on our Facebook page and our website page. So, do you have any questions? So when our very first ballots came out after election night, the Friday after, there was how many ballots were overvoted and undervoted. They should have never used those terms, because I think the undervoted caused some concern for people. Everybody that you could vote for up to 3 people on the 4-year term. So some people voted for 1, some people voted for 2, some people voted for 0. That 1 vote counted, that 2 vote counted, they still counted even though they were undervoted. That was just a figure they put on that sheet. Overvoted, if you voted for 4 on the 4-year term or more, none of your votes counted. Or for 3 on the 2-year term, none of your votes would have counted. So that's how that works. Anyway, right now, I have a certification that says that you accept the canvas of the ballots, and we need to do that by vote.
I move that we accept the results of the 2019 municipal primary election canvass.
Been moved by Council Severin to approve the canvass of elections.
Second.
So second by Councilman Turner. Begin the voting with Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes. Before I do that, I need to make a public apology at this time to Kevin Burns and his family. I spoke out of turn with being very unprofessional and hurt his family a lot, and so I want to publicly apologize to him for my bad judgment. And so then my vote is, I will say yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Councilman Severin.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, quarterly financial report. Our presenter will be Evan Nelson, our finance director.
Couldn't see him, he was hidden in the back.
Good evening. Tonight we're doing a quarterly financial report for the last quarter of fiscal year 2019. I actually printed a few copies, if anybody wants one. I didn't anticipate so many people would be coming to the meeting for the quarterly financial report.
That's what they're all here for.
So to begin, I just want to read this disclaimer. In the report I said, the information contained in this report will be further modified during the year-end closing process and annual financial audit. Therefore, the information should not be considered final. So this is kind of a snapshot where we are at the moment. Our audit typically happens in making quite a few adjustments to these numbers as we prepare for that. But we're happy to share where we are at the moment. So first we'll talk a little bit about sales tax. Our sales tax came in this year $2,882,000, which is $24,000 ahead of our projection, which is less than 1%. So we were very close on that estimate. And if you'll remember, the council pushed us on that. And so we came in all right. So that was a good judgment. We don't mind if there's a little bit more of a buffer next time, but we'll take it. So that's a 5.42% increase over the previous fiscal year, which is pretty significant. So there are some graphs in the packet. You received about a 50-page detailed report of the finances. The page that has these three graphs is a visual summary of the data in that 50-page report, which shows expenditures compared to revenues by fund as well as by general fund department. So I wanted to make just a few notes on that. In the general fund, our revenues exceeded expenditures by $445,000. So that's a positive point. In the transportation funds, these funds have been saving a lot of money over the past several years in preparation for this large road project at the intersection of 2600 North and Washington Boulevard. In the capital improvement fund, revenues and expenditures were both significantly less than we had budgeted, and that's due to the timing of the Washington Boulevard project. We had put money in the budget, but the timing of the project has been a little bit slower than we anticipated. In the 400-450 East fund, this is the fund that tracks the revenue generated by the homes that the city purchased, and the money generated in that fund will also be put toward the widening of Washington Boulevard. In fiscal year 19, we generated $88,000. In the sewer fund, expenditures exceed revenues due to the budgeted use of fund balance on capital projects. In the stormwater fund, expenditures exceed revenues. In the stormwater fund, we had budgeted a large revenue to come from the sale of the current basin, and as we know, that didn't materialize yet. So we didn't recognize any revenues from that in fiscal year 2019. In the storm fund, we also have most of the work on the White Rock debris basin was completed in fiscal year 19. And so we have a fair amount of grant revenue that is still owed to the city that will come in the coming months. In the solid waste fund, expenditures exceed revenues due to budgeted use of fund balance. There was a capital project building a new solid waste building at the Public Works facility. We also had expenditures exceeding the budget by about $3,000 in that fund, but we haven't yet done the asset capitalization process. So once we're finished doing that, I believe the budget will be under what was approved, so we should be okay there. In the motor pools, we had expenditures exceed revenues due to budgeted use of fund balance. And I've said that several times, just to clarify, as we do the budget, we have excess revenues build up in fund balance, and we decide where that money goes. And so in the financial reports, when we use fund balance, we record it as a revenue in the budget, but then no revenue actually comes in because it's already there. So in the report, it shows that expenditures exceed revenues because revenues in that current year don't match the expenditures, but the fund balance makes up the difference. We generally do not use fund balance for operational costs, but we use fund balance for capital or equipment purchases or vehicle purchases. The CDA fund, I guess I skipped the RDA fund. The RDA fund has a balance of about $1.3 million. The CDA fund in fiscal year 19 borrowed an additional $150,000 from the RDA fund. And so the total debt the CDA fund owes the RDA fund is $550,000. In fiscal year 20, the CDA fund will begin to have its own revenue stream. And so as those revenues build, we'll be able to start paying that back to the RDA fund. We've provided estimated fund balances as of June 30th that are shown there in the table. And again, those are estimates. Those will change as we make year-end adjustments in the next couple months. I wanted to mention an economic forecast. You can't see the graph very well, but you can see the trend. We've included quite a few years of data here to show the historical sales tax trend. And you can see during the Great Recession, we did have a significant decline in sales tax. But I think we're fortunate that it only lasted for 2 years before it started ticking upward.
Which page are you on?
That's page 7 or page 75. Well, page 2.
Is it this graph here?
No, go back to the second page of the quarterly report. Right there.
Okay.
So those red lines highlight the periods of time where the sales tax trend declined. But you can see that since 2010, we've had an increase every year. And so that's been a strong growth trend in sales tax. You've probably heard a lot of rumblings about the economy and the forecast for the economy with trade wars and other things that are going on. So most economists are expecting that we'll see a recession in the next year or two. We never know for sure, but that's what most economists are saying. So we watch that, and we'll continue watching that. And as we enter the budget preparation period next winter or spring, we'll see how things are looking at that point and incorporate that into our budget discussions. We've also included a more detailed graph and chart that shows the sales tax trend by month for the fiscal year. And just all of that is for your information. Do you have any questions regarding the quarterly financial report?
Questions, council? Okay, that's good. Thank you, Evan.
You're welcome.
Number 8, amendments to the fiscal year budget 2019, 2020. And that'll be presented by Evan Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Our budget for fiscal year 2020, which began July 1st of 2019. This budget was approved in June, and we would like to propose several amendments to the budget, the current year budget. So I'll explain those proposals. First of all is related to the youth theater camp in the recreation department. We're proposing an amendment of $5,900 in revenue and expenditure for this program. This program was not included in the original budget, but the program was proposed and executed and was very close to covering its own expenses. It was probably off by a couple $100. So we're proposing that $5,900 amendment to the budget. The next one is $500 in revenue and expense for a donation from Lee's Marketplace for the purchase of trees. The next one is $791 in revenue and expense added for the RAMP program's budget, and that just allows us to utilize the full amount of the disbursement that the city received. The next one is related to the Barker Park Amphitheater. When we proposed the original budget for fiscal year 2020, we weren't sure how much of the fiscal year 19 budget would be utilized on the amphitheater, or how much of the project would be able to be completed by the end of June. So we estimated that half would be completed, and we rebudgeted half of the remaining amount. We rebudgeted half as the remaining amount. And so this amendment is proposed to roll over the funds that were approved last fiscal year but were left unspent. This is not proposing approval of additional money, just rolling over the money that was not spent in the amphitheater budget in fiscal year 19. So it's rolling over $190,135, bringing the fiscal year total to $568,342. The last proposed amendment is in the water department, and it's another proposal to roll funds over from the previous fiscal year. $33,870 was left unexpended in the equipment line in the water department, and there was a proposal for a new leak trailer, so we're proposing to roll that money forward to be able to purchase that in the current fiscal year. So those are the proposed amendments. You can approve those as written, or you can modify them, and you would use the attached ordinance to vote on that. Do you have any questions about those amendments?
Questions from the council? We need a motion for public hearing. Yeah.
Well, you can just go. You can just open the public hearing.
In regard to the amendments to the fiscal year budget, we'd open it up for public hearing if any of you have any questions regarding this particular item. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing.
You need a motion.
I move we close the public hearing.
It's been moved by Councilman Turner to close the public hearing.
Second.
The second by Councilman Swanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Evan, for your report. Okay, the next item, major project vote for,
We need to vote on that.
pardon?
Do we have an ordinance number to vote on that one?
Oh, sorry. One more item to do.
It's ordinance number 2019-18.
And Mayor, I make a motion, we approve ordinance 2019-18, amending our fiscal year budget 2019-2020 as presented by Evan.
Second that.
Then moved and second that we approve the amendments to the fiscal year budget. We'll begin the voting with Councilman Swanson,
Yes.
Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severie,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item is a major project. It's been requested by the council for an opportunity for reconsideration on the 2550 detention basin design. This has been a request by the council members. And at the conclusion of item A, we'll have an opportunity for public comments or questions. Please keep your comments within the 5-minute rule. So we need a vote to reconsider.
I move that we reconsider the vote on the detention basin.
It's been moved by Council Severie that we reconsider the vote on 2550 detention basin design.
Second.
The second by Councilman Swanson. Any other questions or discussion? We'll begin the voting with Councilman Barker.
I didn't know I get a vote on this. I'm still gonna say no.
Okay.
Microphone?
No?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Severie?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Councilman Stoker? Councilwoman Stoker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the major project discussion or action on the 2550 detention basin design presented will be Charlotte Exton.
The mayor, because I was the councilman who began the chain of events that led to that opposition, I'd like to explain my position for this reconsideration.
Okay?
I wanted to make sure that everybody understood with clarity the thoughts that I had about this process. So I actually reduced my thoughts to paper, which is generally unlike me, but I'm going to reduce it to paper anyhow. Please know that when I was elected to the city council, I made a commitment to myself that I would never, let me repeat, never vote for a project that I felt would obligate citizens to a heavier financial obligation than I felt justified. There are many citizens who are wondering why this project is being discussed again. To their inquiry, may I answer that this project, according to John Call, our city attorney, quote, is the largest he's had to work on in his time working in the city, and one of the most difficult for him to wrap his mind around, end of quote. Anyone who knows John Call knows he's brilliant. So I didn't feel too bad when I found my mind swimming, no pun intended, to make the figures work in our council meeting. It should be noted that this vetting process, counseling, thinking, researching, and counseling again to make a decision, is used in family circles, businesses, church councils, and nonprofit organizations when the right decision about a purchase is crucial. I need to make it clear to some who maybe wonder why Charlotte Ekstrom has been selected to present what she and her husband Kim discovered in their due diligence to understand this project. Charlotte approached me as citizen Charlotte at the time, and not primary candidate Charlotte, with a desire to dig in and understand this project to her best ability. I've always been a person who believes, and I know that many of you will agree, that the person who does the hardest work deserves the credit. She was willing to allow me to make her presentation, but I would not feel comfortable with the appearance of having done all of the work. In saying that, please know that I've spent countless hours with Kim and Charlotte, speaking with John Call, Lauren Gardner, our city engineer, and others on the council, as well as my own personal time seeking to understand this project. I've gone to bed with it on my mind, and I've woke up with it on my mind, stewing about the right decision. Having completed my due diligence, I had to find the answer to the following questions. Question 1, do we really need the basin? Yes. Why do we need it? With so many of you, I remember the heavy winter of 83 to 84. I also remember the rainstorm that brought down what seemed like, as a teenager, half the mountain into Cameron Cove. Our recent June, with all of the rain, caused the current basin to overflow. I have heard people say about this detention, the 100-year flood will not come for another 50 years. But this detention is not just for natural disasters. With future building above 3100 North, we are getting more concrete and asphalt, meaning less permeable substances and therefore more runoff. Question number 2, how much is this thing going to cost taxpayers? The city, at the time, had a legitimate letter of intent to purchase the current 6.6 acre basin from a developer, and the city council at the time thought it opportune, because of changes the Montessori school was going to make, to begin the process of piping from the current basin to the proposed site at a cost of approximately $520,000. With the additional 1.2 needed to complete this project, we will receive a grant of approximately $7 million, which does have attached to it the need for a recreational aspect to the basin. Question number 3, how much would it cost if we postponed the basin and didn't accept the grant? Because this is an infrastructure need, construction rates based on present costs suggest $5 to $10 million, the complete cost to the city without grants, depending, of course, on where we find a location to construct another basin. Number 4, aren't grants just another form of a tax? Yes, they are. Fiscally, if the powers that be are willing to give us back $7 million in grants or $7 million in tax, it would seem fiscally irresponsible not to allow them to give us back our money. Question number 5, will the sale of the detention basin on 2700 be profitable to the city? Yes. While we do not know when the basin will sell, the commercial value of the ground will provide revenue in the forms of sales and property tax that will assist us in keeping property taxes lower to the citizens. Now, Charlotte is going to go into more detail, but I used my thought process as I worked to the decision that I've come to. Please know that were this project exclusively for the city to just build a kayaking pond, I could not support it. Some may disagree with my opinion. That's okay. In fact, it's expected. I will still be your friend, and I hope you'll be mine. Please know that my decision is based on my due diligence and desire to not, and I repeat, not, K-N-O-T, place any future unnecessary financial burden on the taxpayers, including myself, regarding this project. Please listen to Charlotte as she explains in greater depth the ins and outs of this project. Candidates for election this year, those who are running for the 4-year seats, who have not shared in public comments, will be permitted, if they would like, to share their brief thoughts after the presentation.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to acknowledge Councilman Severing. I sat in city council meeting and listened to the presentation, which had a lot of information in it. And as I was sitting there penciling it out, it just looked like a good deal. I was like, why, financially, this looks like it makes sense. And generally, if people I know and respect have a disagreement, or I disagree with their decision, I think, what have I been missing something? Thank you, John. So when I don't understand something, when I think, okay, what am I missing? I go home and I look it up. So the process that I went through is I went home and I pulled out all of the numbers and assembled them. I enlisted the help of my sweet husband, who has 20 years experience in projects of this magnitude and this complexity, and said, honey, I need a spreadsheet. I kind of have this joke with him that some women's husbands give them flowers and jewelry. My husband gives me spreadsheets and Stephen Covey books. So it works for us. But anyway, I just want to acknowledge Councilman Severing, who sat through all of my out loud thinking and my very ADHD storytelling for quite a few hours to help me understand this project so that we could both wrap our heads around it. I acknowledge Councilwoman Stoker, who actually came to my house and let me explain it to her while we were, the 2 6-year-olds were vying for our attention. And also to Councilman Ryan Barker, who, despite disliking the project for various reasons, was willing to listen to me. So I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate John Call. I was in his office, and my husband was in his office for many, many hours, looking over and verifying every number, digging through, making sure everything was verified, everything was correct to the best of our ability. Some of the things in here are estimates, and we had to just make our best guess assumptions. So thank you again for that. So I guess going on to this is basically a big math story problem. So the first thing we have to do when we look at it is sort out what's relevant to the decision and what isn't. I also want to acknowledge Lynn Satterthwaite and Randy Wynn. I enlisted Randy Wynn's help. He felt the same way I did, and so I asked him to come.
This is absolutely inappropriate. Have a candidate.
Okay, so anyway, he came over and helped me. Look, we thought through some things together. Lynn Satterthwaite was also very instrumental. He is an engineer, and he also knows very much about the city's infrastructure. And so I asked him to look up a lot of the things, especially on the additional options. It's like, if we don't do this, what else could we do? So he definitely helped on that, and I really appreciate his help there. So moving on. Let's just go on to what is the project. So we have our first one. What are the major project elements? First is the city acquires 6.6 acres from, that's not coming through, I apologize, for the land acquired from a Double Out Ranch in exchange for fee waivers, zoning changes, and other development concessions. So no cash payment is made for the land or other land acquisition costs are minimal. Do you want me to wait to go on until we can get that to work?
It's just the screens are glitchy. I think you're good.
Okay.
Now.
All right, let's see. There we go. Yay! Okay, so no cash payment is made, and other land acquisition costs are minimal. In part, let's see. Here we go. Where am I looking? Okay.
Yeah,
We actually even practiced this, so I'm. It's always fun to have technological glitches.
Let's try doing it now. Nope.
Answer again, what was the trade being made?
We'll go into that further. I mean, this is just the overview. So we'll actually discuss, I'll actually answer that question. Okay, so here we go. Then we have, in partnership with Pineview Water Systems, and this is actually the Weber Basin Water Authority, I think is the name of their actual, but National Resource Conservation Service and Outdoor Recreation Grant, the following is constructed. We have a new water detention facility, which is replacing the 17 acre-feet of detention from the current facility and provide an additional 5 acre-feet. That will help avoid current and future flooding. As Councilman Severing pointed out, it's already flooded. We get a new irrigation facility, which will provide up to 20 additional acre-feet of irrigation capacity. And some might say, well, North Ogden doesn't need that irrigation capacity, but our neighbors down the road do. And any capacity that we put in the system ultimately benefits all of us. As long as we have enough with that, that helps us with our water pressure, it helps us with the supply that comes to North Ogden. It just helps to have more capacity in the system. I think Pineview is going to build one whether we go in on it or not. One of the things that I want to point out is because this is a collaborative effort, this is kind of why I love this. It shows the multiplicative factor that is the benefit. When we work together, it makes it messy, it makes it complicated, but it also makes it a lot more powerful. Stephen Covey talks about it as independence is good, interdependence is better. That's collaboration. So when we work together, we do that. Then, of course, we get, as a bonus, as far as I'm concerned, a new water irrigation recreation facility. That is a requirement for the grant. And, we can argue that we don't want to use grants, but it's our money. We have to get it back. It's a really inefficient process to have to apply for a grant to get our tax money back, but that's the paradigm we live in. So, all right, so now we move on to how did we get where we are? We have our current state. This is what is. This is where we are right now. We have paid to $528,000 in construction. That is complete. That is the pipe that has been discussed. We have one in cooperation with Pineview Water Systems, this NCRS grant. We have won the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant. We have secured the partnership with Pineview, and the DOR agreement is tentatively negotiated. It is not signed yet. So this, according to, I'm referring to this agreement as what is currently in that agreement. So we'll move on from there. So how did we get there? How we got to where we are? The current 2550 detention basin was under purchase contract to John Mercer for approximately $1.3 million, and the sale appeared imminent. So, and also Maria Montessori School was also starting construction on their junior high, meaning we were able to secure the water line easement and install the pipe without unnecessary disruption. Then these two factors factors led to the council's voting unanimously to approve the budget for and the installation of the stormwater pipe. We didn't just do it willy-nilly. We didn't do it behind anybody's back. This is what was happening. So that leads us to the decision tree. We are where we are. Now we have to make a decision. First, we can move the pond to DOR. That incurs about $1 million more in construction costs, $1.3 million in future impact fees exchange. This is a trade for 6.6 acres for it to be able to fit. And then we potentially lose $41,000 in potential property tax revenue loss. Now this is if it's developed into medium density housing. That's how much property tax could be collected. It's not now. It's kind of in I think it's in farmland or something like that. So it's not that. That is just potential. So what are the benefits if we cost it out? We get an $8 million facility for a $1 million incremental spend that replaces detention capacity and gains 5 acre-feet, gains 20 acre-feet of irrigation capacity, provides a recreational facility. Then we get $1.6 million or more for the land sale, $207,000 in potential annual sales tax revenue. We get a $151,000 in potential annual CDA and property tax revenue. So if we don't do that one, what's the next best option? Well, according to our city engineers and our Pineview water engineer, we could move it out to Far West. There will be at least $4 million in construction costs because we'll have to pipe like a 6-foot pipe all the way down 2550 down to get there. That sounds like a nightmare to me just in and of itself. $2 million to purchase up to 10 acres. When I spoke, maybe we could get that land for free from UDOT, but that doesn't help us to get there. I had a conversation with Kevin Burns about, it was the sheriff's department, how he, they wanted to put a line item in the budget for free stuff. So apparently there are some FEMA trailers that we're welcome to use. We just have to go to Louisiana to get them. So yeah, sometimes accepting free stuff is really expensive. So then in addition, we do have that pipe already laid. we will have to take the detention water that was supposed to go, that was in the Maria Montessori Basin, now has to be piped into the current basin. So that's going to cost about another $516,000 to do that. So we've got to take that water and put it back in the detention basin we have, also increasing the amount that's going in there. Okay, so then what are the benefits there? Well, we then get a $6 million facility for $6.5 million, that incremental spend that replaces and augments the detention capacity. We pay $1.6 million or more. We still get the $1.6 million or more for the land sales. We still get the potential annual sales tax revenue, and we still get the 151 potential annual CDA property tax revenue. So it's possible. Then what if we do nothing? What if we just undo it all? Well, we've already spent $528,000. Now we're going to have to spend another $516,000 to undo it. We open ourselves up to future flooding risks. And what do we get for that? Nothing. We're back to where we started. So we'll go into a little bit of the justification. Why should we do this? Well, as Councilman Severing pointed out, the current facility flooded already in the spring of 2019, and new construction continuously adds to the detention need, making more flooding likely. We have insufficient irrigation capacity to supply North Ogden residents. Pineview needs more space. Residents depend on this secondary water. Combining facilities reduces costs both for North Ogden and for Pineview, reducing in lower stormwater impact fees and secondary water rates. So, and it's also fiscally irresponsible to use scarce prime commercial land for water detention. The land asset should be used to optimize the quality of life of residents. We lack commercial land in North Ogden. It limits the opportunities for new businesses to move into North Ogden and for existing businesses to grow. It sends sales tax revenue spent by North Ogden residents to other cities. I know I spend a lot of money in Riverdale. I would rather spend it in North Ogden. Forces residents also to waste time and effort traveling to shop, limits the city's ability to attract customers and, more importantly, their sales tax revenue from other cities. It also limits local employment opportunities for residents and their families. There's only so many places that are in North Ogden that our kids can work. And parents can work also. All right, so how about the project costs? What does North Ogden pay for this? Okay, we have the land acquisition costs. This is the double lot ranch agreement. This is a really brilliant negotiating, it's a bit of a negotiating on the part of Mayor Taylor. So he says we're basically, if you want to use the Popeye reference, we're paying Tuesday for the hamburger today. He will deed us the land, and it is assessed, or the agreed price, I guess we should say, is $200,000 an acre, which is very reasonable in the current market. So the value is $1.32 million, but we don't pay it in cash. What the city does is they waive those $1.32 million in impact fees. So $850,000 in park and $450,000 in stormwater instead of cash. Then DOR also provides a road easement to the city. North Ogden provides other concessions to DOR valued at less than $5,000. So this is a little bit hard to wrap your mind around sometimes, but basically it's kind of like giving them a coupon. So we get the land today. We get it right now. Then he gets a coupon, so when he develops something, he says, remember, I already gave you the land for this, when it comes time to collect the stormwater and park impact fees. So then going forward, we have the facility planning and design construction. North Ogden pays $1.44 million total. $410,000 has already been incurred. The go-forward expense is $1.04 million. Notice that $410,000 is different. The city has already paid $528,000, but Pineview has committed to put another $118,000 toward the pipe installation for us. So if we go forward with the project as proposed, we also get some more money from Pineview. So, oops, there we go, going back one. Anyway, we also have expenses paid by other taxing entities. These are taxes, we have paid them. The National Resource Conservation Service is going to give us $4.4 million. This is like Big Brother taking money out of our wallets and saying, here, go buy yourself something nice. So we do have to have a recreation facility in order to get that money. Pineview Water Systems is going to pay $659,000. Outdoor Recreation Grant, $100,000, and Double Lot Ranch is actually committed to, as proposed, another $98,000 in construction. So, what are the benefits? So, bottom line is North Ogden pays $1.44 million out of pocket for a facility worth $8 million. I like those returns. So, what are the benefits we get? The land proceeds, which could be more, but we're estimating low. Generally, when we were doing this analysis, we estimated costs high and revenues low. So these numbers could go up. This could be much higher based on recent North Ogden commercial land sales. Property tax revenue increase is about $151,000 per year, and that's based on direct collection and CDA redistribution. And that gets to be some kind of fun for me because I like math, calculations there. We have a sales tax revenue increase from new businesses estimated at about $207,000 a year. We have property tax loss. It's like not a current tax, but again, if property tax revenue is foregone, if the 6.6 acres were developed into medium density housing. So then moving on, bottom line, we can get $1.6 million or more for the land and $317,000 annually. So, facility design considerations and recommendations. One of the considerations is that a lot of residents have put forth is safety, and that is definitely a consideration. We want to keep our residents safe. The best way we can estimate that is by those who will put their money where their mouth is. So according to the city's insurance agency, they have sophisticated methods for assessing risks. So the facility will cost no more to insure than a grass park. Then logistical concerns, there may be both foreseen traffic, parking, facility management, and unforeseen issues. These can be addressed in public hearings that are going to happen as soon as this project is approved. The actual design of the facility is not set in stone. These are just estimates. So one of the things that I think would be appropriate would be to design the in and out of the facility to be kind of like the pool. So far, it's a large body of water. The pool has had nobody drown in it as far as I know by wandering in. So we can do that. Again, these are things that can be addressed. That's not the decision that we're making today. How the facility is actually designed is still under consideration. We'll design that. But what we recommend is to approve the minimum design required to meet city needs, which is the most important, and to qualify for the grants. So there are 3 elements required to qualify for the grants: detention, irrigation, and recreation. So the detention and irrigation elements are satisfied by the recommended design. The recreation element can be satisfied by approving a walking trail and kayaking and canoeing. I would add that I would like to have life jackets required also if you're going to get on the water. So the facility will be constructed and managed to support safety and logistics with elements such as double entry gates and life jacket requirements, etc. Okay, so identifying and resolving safety, logistics, and other facility issues is the major focus of public meetings and more detailed planning, which will happen later. But right now, we don't have anything to plan. Okay, so again, going back to our project's summary and decision tree, what should we decide? So we can do nothing. Actually, I'm going to go back. This is going to cost us more money. And then if we do that, it just pushes the decision down the road. Then we're stuck with option 2. That is what will cost a lot of money. We don't know how much, but it's going to be a lot, and we're not going to have anybody to help us. So what we're left with is this one. So the city council's choice is to vote for the project and meet the city's needs at the lowest cost. We have the money in the bank for this choice in the stormwater impact fee funds and the general fund. Then to do the other ones, we're guaranteed to throw away another $500,000 and ultimately spend millions more, and that we can't afford. We need that money for things like a new police station and more police and better paid ones. This is the proverbial bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, only in this case, we don't know where the bush is or if there are any birds in it. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mrs. Ekstrom, for that great presentation. Questions from the council?
Good. Okay. Thank you.
But now we'll open it up for public comments.
Mayor, can I say something just real quick?
Sure.
Charlotte, that presentation is available on the city website.
The complete one was just emailed to Annette. We had just the.
Excellent.
Oh, it's not yet.
It'll go on the website.
Okay.
Okay.
Karen McIntosh, 2230 North Fruitland Drive. Number one, North Ogden will never be Riverdale. As a law enforcement officer for 18 years in that city, I can tell you that that city has never, ever run in the red. They are always in the black. Number two, Roy City had a drowning right after I went out of the strike force at the pool out in Roy. A 13-year-old boy lost his life to drowning. You want to make life jackets possible there? Let's go to Causey Dam. They're now having to take their law enforcement officers and post them at Causey Dam to make sure that people wear their life jackets. Do you think they're going to wear them over there? Are we really going to put our children in danger in 600-plus apartments over there that are probably going to be single family? As a mother who worked in law enforcement and their father who worked in law enforcement, our children were put at risk every single day. Now you're talking to have the police go in and enforce the rules there. Let's work on getting our police force more money, more officers, more enforcement. You have the officers down there trying to track down those that are not wearing life jackets. What about me? What about me? Where's my safety? It's down the tubes. I appreciate what you do as a council, but you need to understand that you're putting lives at risk. Lives at risk, people at risk, the citizens of this city at risk. It's got to stop. We need more improvements. I was the victim of a flooding last year. I understand you cannot project a pipe bursting. I get that. But we need to make sure that our infrastructures that we have here are enforced and are completely up the best. We will never be Riverdale here. Don't bring Riverdale up into this equation, because North Ogden will never compare to Riverdale. I left there making $33 an hour 6 years ago as a sergeant. They're now making upwards over to 40. You tell me how you're going to get police officers to come here paying them what you're paying. You're not. They're going to go where the money is. Why do you think everybody's leaving and going to Salt Lake? We need to take care of our own people before we go. And Blake, I'm sorry, but I'm disappointed in you. I am. I'm disappointed in you, and I'm disappointed in Cheryl for allowing this to go on behind our backs. What about the people who want to make a presentation about everything that's gone wrong? This needs to be tabled, and it needs to be tabled for good this time.
No applause, please. That's inappropriate in this meeting.
Bob Buswell, 962 East, 3025 North, North Ogden. Most of you drove your car tonight to the meeting. Your vehicles work apparently well. It's unlikely that a person here tonight will buy a new car tomorrow, even though you have the money to buy another car. We have Barker's Trout Farm and a city swimming pool. Just because we have the money for a fishing and swimming pond doesn't mean we have to use the money to duplicate these two items. Yes, it's okay to have a detention basin, but not for the purpose of a fishing pond or a swimming pond. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
My main comment is about the
Your
schooling.
your name and address, please.
My name is Donald Gerhart, 2066 North, 200 East. But, so, the zoning would put them in Majestic, which is already a pretty overcrowded school. And we just tried to separate the boundaries, and that's beyond Ogden's, our control. That's Weber County's control. So, you want to put more housing into an already crowded school, and you know they will be single-income housing. And you're giving them a private resort pond? Why? What's the need? We're trying to jump over dollars to save pennies. Yes, we lost the $500-something. Why are we going to sink 104 million more? Why? No point. That's all.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name's Farley Merkley. I live at 185 West Alberta Drive. And I do want to say I think it was inappropriate for Mrs. Ekstrom to make the presentation in light of her candidacy, and I think that was kind of a shady stunt to be pulled by the council to allow that to happen. Her presentation was interesting. One of the questions I have is how can you actually believe that a piece of ground with grass on it will get you the same insurance rate as a piece of ground that will be swam in, boated on, and people drowned in? Because that will happen. The other concern I have, and if I can get this question answered, is she talked about medium-density housing. What is that? Is there anyone that cares to answer that question? No one cares to answer what medium-density housing is?
Probably around a quarter to a third of an acre.
Is that accurate? You guys are the ones that should know. Is that accurate?
Council, do you want me to answer? So in the city's future land use plan, in the general plan, it says medium-density housing is 6 to 18 units per acre. And this is one of those properties that was identified as a medium-density opportunity.
So is this putting us in the same boat of the trouble we're headed for with the Country Boy Dairy property and the property next to the Walker Theater? You're putting over 2,000 cars onto Washington Boulevard with those two developments. How are you going to accommodate the infrastructure for that, or do you not care because that's the state's problem? And what are you going to do about the problems created with the schools? How many of you have kids or grandkids, looks like most situation, that are going to be going to those schools that are going to get impacted? Because every school is going to get impacted because boundaries will get shifted. So it won't just impact Majestic, it'll impact North Ogden, right on through and including the schools in Pleasant View. So we're having a negative impact on your neighbor. Another concern I have is, and Councilman Swanson, I'm going to address this one right at you because you gave me a bad answer last time I brought this up. The American Society of Sociology has clearly stated that the higher density the population, the higher per capita is the crime. And you heard the lady speak earlier about the concern of the police department here. And I too am very concerned about that. We need this city to be on a competitive edge with its employees and its police officers. We need good quality people in both places. I'm amazed at Annette Spendlove and how great she's been to the city. She's an amazing woman, I think. But I see others who've come in here, been great, and said, okay, thanks, I'm going to go double my pay in Roy or someplace like that. Quit cheating our employees. I say our employees because every one of us are paying their wages. Let's be fair to them. We do need the infrastructure, and it is understanding about needing water retention to prevent flooding. I do remember all of the floods that were discussed here, and doing a fair amount of sandbagging and digging to help relieve those situations. But I am totally against, and still am totally against, and can't understand for the life of me why any of you voted for what's going on in Country Boy Dairy or the Walker Theater, why you allowed such high-density housing. And I would firmly support an ordinance that didn't allow a piece of property to be smaller for single dwelling and no multiple dwellings of 8,000 square feet, nothing smaller than 8,000 square feet. We need places for our kids to play. We don't need sardine cans and expect our kids to play on a postage stamp lot. That does not work. That's high-density housing, and that's trouble. And it's trouble for the next generation. It starts in about 10 years, and it just gets worse. Take a look at Ron Clare and Mount Airy. What's happened there? It started out as a wonderful little development to help people afford homes. Now it's the gangbanger joint. I grew up in Layton. One of the reasons my wife and I chose to move to North Ogden and not Layton was because Layton was already diving into the high-density housing and all the crime that was coming with it. My brother, who lives in Layton, recently rode around with the Layton City Lieutenant around the high-density housing projects. And he let the lieutenant point out to him, oh yeah, this gang member, this leader lives here, this gang, their leader lives over here, and yeah, we spend a lot of time here. And I'm certainly, you've seen on the news that every single month, at least once this summer, there's been a major fire at a high-density housing project where 12 to 30 people were displaced with one fire.
Interrupt just a minute, your 5 minutes is over.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Julie Anderson, 940 East, 2600 North. I do want to preface with the fact that, yes, I am running for city council. I'm one of the 6 that made it, just so that you people are aware that that is... I was told I would be given an opportunity as a candidate.
You have 21 minutes, Julie.
I don't think I need that quite, but... So to begin with this, forgive my little bit of nervousness tonight. I didn't have a great deal of time to prepare what I'm doing, and had to spend a lot of time doing some research. And I am going to take a moment to thank the Ekströms and anybody else that was involved in this, their work and their presentation and their information. However, I'm not here to talk about the money side of it. I'm actually here to talk about the water aspect. I have to tell you that is one part of it that has very dearly been messing my brain up. I can tell you that after talking to my husband, who has a degree in agriculture and farming, who was also a farmer as he grew up, he fully understands the movement of water back and forth and from A to B. However, after our discussions, even he was confused by all that was going on. So I decided to make a list of questions that we had. And then I started my research. The questions I had was, how does the pond work? How are they going to move Pineview water out of the pond? What are the elevations of the area? Will that help move the water? How deep are we digging? Do we need to dig? Do we have a guarantee from Pineview to make sure that we always have the depths that we need for the stormwater retention basin? Can you mix irrigation and stormwater? Will there be berms? Do we need those? Are we following city policies? Have we looked into or gotten the MPDES permits needed? How will North Ogden benefit from this, and when will it begin? So to begin, how does the pond work? To get this answer, I went to the source. I tried to get hold of Lauren. He's a very busy man within the city, and I didn't want to keep bugging him too much. So I talked to Matt Harvickson, who is the Jones & Associates engineer on this particular project. And he was very gracious in spending quite a bit of time to kind of make me understand it. Okay, so we have 3 options. We have the one great big pond, we have the one that has the little beaches area, and then we have the one that has the grass area. The problem with the beach area is if we let Pineview go down every night, it dries up your beach area. So, not most probably the best area. The part with the green in it is the problem is because of the way the pipe is from Montessori, water will sit in that particular area, okay? So really, as you look at it, and I'm not saying this is what I agree with, it needs to be one great big pond, which is 6+ acres, has been talked about. From what I can gather, Pineview will have the bottom half of the water, and then we will have whatever is left of that particular basin or that particular pond to fill up with our stormwater, okay? Well, in order to meet the extra stormwater capacity, it requires that the area of the pond be dug down and berms to be built. That is because the east side is higher than the west side. And in talking, I found out we most probably have to build up a berm on the west side of 2 feet. An example of that is Orton Park. If you want to see an example of that, if you look at Orton Park's, it's higher on one side, the berm's up here, and on the other side it's down here. So that brings me to the next question. How are they going to move Pineview and stormwater in and out of the pond, especially if we're during a storm? The pipe that we built behind the Montessori school is how that water is going to be moved into the pond. Okay. On a rainy day, the pipe will carry the stormwater into the pond. Duh. I'm like, Julie, that makes sense. When there is no storms, Pineview, that pipe will be empty. At which point, Pineview can then, with a connection to that same pipe, open it up and allow the Pineview Canal water to run into the berm, into the pond, okay? To move the irrigation water out of Pineview, we will not be able to use gravity as there is not enough of an elevation there. That is why a pump house is being built. This will allow Pineview to pressurize the water and pump it out. Now, Pineview could choose to pressurize it enough to run it right back into Pineview. However, the cost to Pineview would be exorbitant. So, that is not what's going to happen. They're going to build it, they're going to have the pressurized enough to take care of that end of town, which unfortunately benefits places like Harrisville, Far West, and Pleasant View. So, as Pineview fills up in the summertime, I've been told they need at least 22 acre-feet of water. They have agreed, I haven't seen that in a contract anywhere, to take it down to 6 acre-feet. And that is our recreational water. It is actually Pineview's water that we will be swimming on. This water is extremely cold and presents a problem if we have a storm when Pineview is at full water. If they are at full capacity and a storm comes in, we just don't know where our weather's going. I've been told there's a pipe in the pond that comes up halfway. So I'm just putting numbers out. I don't know how far this is going to go. But if they dig down 16 feet, this particular pipe will come up 8 feet. And that will allow the storm water to very slowly drain out. Even though it's coming in very fast, it will allow it to drain out. And then we can only hope that Pineview, which again they have agreed, I've been told they've agreed to do, is to allow their irrigation water to go out so that we don't lose our capacity. When it comes to mixing and storm and irrigation, I found this information. If simple management protocols and good catchment management practices are followed, stormwater can be used safely for low-risk purposes, such as irrigation. For higher-risk uses, where people are more likely to be in close contact with the water, more complex management controls are necessary. We still have to install pipes back to 2550. That is not an option. It's the only way we can get the stormwater out of there. So we are going to have to, and I don't know if they're going across Mr. Opeiken's land, I don't know where these pipes are going, but I was told we still have to build the pipes out from the pond to 2550. Okay. So as I sat and mulled these over in my head, I thought, I'm sure people are sat there thinking, well, that sounds okay. Does this mean I'm now for the pond? Is it a great thing? Well, I can't answer that because there are actually still so many questions that we have not received regarding water issues. So while at this point I'm still not in favor of the pond, I wanted to share with you some of my concerns and worries. 1, Pineview has not yet submitted their plans on how they are going to do things. We have not seen anything from Pineview. So we are going to make a decision tonight based purely on what we can do. Now, we're not going to be digging down the hole, I would hope, because that hole needs to be made so Pineview has their irrigation water. We have actually no guarantee that Pineview will stick to what they decide, because, as with anything, as they start making their plans, guess what happens? Things change, costs change, all those kind of things. Can we mix stormwater and irrigation? Well, here's what I discovered. The city actually has a policy in their public works standards. It's number 19.4 under conveyance. It says, it is the policy of the city that stormwaters not be carried in irrigation ditches, nor that irrigation water be conveyed in storm drain systems. That is right in there. So if you are going to make a decision to do this, you have to change that policy. There are also permits that are needed. I know more about water than I ever wanted to know. These are issued through the MPDES Stormwater Program. Have we investigated the cost of these and how long it will take to actually get these permits? To give you an idea what this was, in 1972, amendments to the Federal Water Pollution Control Act, later referred to as the Clean Water Act, prohibited the discharge of any pollutant to navigable waters of the United States unless the discharge is authorized by the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, MPDES. Because construction site stormwater runoff can contribute significantly to water quality problems, the Phase 1 stormwater rule imposed a requirement that all sites with a planned land disturbance of 5 acres or more obtain an MPDES permit and implement stormwater runoff controls. Phase 2 extended the requirements of the stormwater program to also sites between 1 and 5 acres. So we actually need that permit. Just so you know, I'm going to email this to Annette tonight when I get home because I have put some attachments in with this information and website information to it. So they have what's called an R-factor calculator, which is about erosion, to see when we could actually start this project. I put in the dates 10/28/2019 through April 1st of 2020. Put it on the location. You have to have a 5.0 or less to be able to begin construction. Through those dates, we have a 7.7, which means this project cannot start until actually March. I put in February's. I don't know how long this project is going to take, so I'm just wildly putting in dates. I tried to think that these guys were smart enough. Even in February, we will not be able to start. And there will be more information for you guys to read. I don't want to take the time. So what are our benefits? Well, we'll have a pond that we will be able to kayak on, but the word has been, we've talked about not swimming in. However, the water will have a constant temperature of about 65 degrees. So wear your wetsuits, people, if you're going to come and use the pond. Pineview will not be able to provide irrigation to North Ogden City because they're not going to be able to pump it up high enough. So as I said earlier, the cities down below us will benefit. We are still growing and adding more homes and high density, which will require more density basins in the future. We are not gaining enough storage to meet that. We will not gain enough storage to meet that need. In fact, we're just trading one detention basin for another. We're not adding a detention basin. All we're adding is a little bit of extra water. I saw this detention basin overflowing. It did not overflow for that long. I've lived in the city 30 years, and that's the first time I have seen it overflow. I asked why we could not move this somewhere else and was told that we do not have anywhere else to put this, which is very scary to me because we're not done growing. We're absolutely not. So does this really benefit us in the long run? You know, we made a deal for the public works without bonds and all these things that we're talking about today. And we managed to make it work. So why can't we do the same thing with this? Save our money, and when it's time, turn over the money. Or I'm sure there would be something we could work out with Mr. O'Piken. Or maybe there is another resident willing to sell their land and again, it would require us saving the money. So what I'm asking, and I'm not going to go on too long, but for me, the water issues where Pineview is not ready yet to show us what their plans are, and that we are going to make a decision based upon that, worries me. I think as you make your decision tonight, you need to have the whole picture. Pineview's part, our part, Mr. O'Piken's part, everything needs to be in place. You don't just need the rosy side of it. We should not be hasty to make our no vote a yes just for the money part. We also need to look at what is going to be built there, and people have already said it, so I don't need to say anything more. Maybe this is a place where instead of building high density, we could look into building affordable homes, not just apartments. Homes that our children can move into. We hear it all the time. And so as you make your decision tonight, please don't just make it on the money. The explanation was given why we shouldn't move it somewhere else. But any way we look at it, we have to send our stormwater stuff back out to 2550, which means we are going to have to put the piping in to carry the stormwater away. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Wade Bigler, live at 1764 North 800 East. And first I want I want to recognize the fact that I know your job is hard, believe me. And but that's what you signed up for. And I didn't catch the first lady's name who presented, and then Mr. Merkley, I think it was his name. I could not agree with them more. On the things that they said. And I do think that it really wasn't a good look to have a candidate present. And I appreciate you being willing to and taking the time to, but I can't imagine a resident having not one piece of information on something like this that our city staff that we pay for to do this work and our city leaders wouldn't have. And when she was announcing this meeting to come to it and for a presentation, she said there's new information that they didn't have before. And that was a little bit of a concern to me since you voted on it 2 times previously. And hope. And I appreciated your words, Blake. I love you. But I also was disappointed. Because this hasn't been a vote once, it's been a vote twice, and not just in the last week or two. And before a council member votes once on behalf of residents, we should gather all the facts and the information and do our due diligence, not vote twice and then do our due diligence. But I would also like, if there's any piece of information that was different or added that you didn't have the first 2 times to vote, I'd like to know specifically what that was. And then there was an underlying concern that I have, and I know that a lot of residents have, is the integrity of the process here. And Phil, you had accepted a $500 donation from the landowner of this project, and you have every right to do that. But when you sit in this chair, that creates a big conflict. And even if you would not do any impropriety, we need to avoid the very appearance of impropriety. And so if you decide to take that money from this ongoing issue, the property owners, then I think with integrity, you should recuse yourself from voting. Or you have an option, the other option was to decline the $500 and go ahead and vote on the project. But it definitely is a conflict. And also, Blake, you have a good honorable profession as a realtor, and that's fine. But there's so many multifamily housing going in. And I've heard it quite a lot around the city that there may be a conflict there because you have potential to make a lot of money as a realtor selling these, and then you're asked to vote on these things. And I know you to be, I've known you for a lot of years, I know you to be a good, honest man. And I don't think you do anything purposefully dishonest. But once again, to avoid the appearance of having a conflict, and there is, on when you're voting on putting tons and tons of this housing in with your profession, that's a conflict. And so I would hope that you two, to keep integrity of the process, would recuse from voting on this issue. And to me, honestly, it doesn't matter, and I didn't know which way you're going to vote until you spoke at the beginning, right? And that made it clear. But it doesn't matter whether you're voting for this or against this. It's more than that. It's a matter of honor and integrity and doing what's right. It's right and wrong. And so if you care more about than so much that I got to push this through to get my vote in, then the integrity of the process, then that's a real challenge, I think. And I don't care if my mother was sitting up there, I was sitting up there, and I was in one of those two cases, I'd recuse myself just so that wasn't a problem. And I wanted to just say something along this line with Carl. I served with Carl on the council 10 years ago, and for 2 years. And that's when the Public Works facility was coming up, and we were putting that out for bid and so forth. And Carl works for Big O, or Big D Construction. And Carl and I voted differently on things, and specifically on that issue. I wanted to pay cash, and he voted for the bond and so forth, and that's fine. That's why there's 5 council members. But one thing I really respected him for, members or residents started coming out, do you remember this? And talking about maybe some improprieties. Hey, he works for Big D Construction, this is a conflict and so forth. You know what Carl did? He removed himself from the Public Works Committee, and he distanced himself from it and said, I don't want any looks of improprieties here. And I really respected him a great deal for that. And in fact, in 2 different council meetings, when residents were coming and talking that way, I spoke up for him and said, I know Carl Turner to be an honest man, and I don't think he'd purposely do that, but he backed away from it. And so, to be clear on this, I don't have an agenda as to trying to push this issue. It's deeper than that. It's integrity of this process. And I would hope the 2 of you would recuse yourselves. Now, there wasn't much stated about all of our multifamily housing units there. And John, somebody asked, and you said 16 to 18. I believe our city, it's up to 20 units per acre, not 16 to 18, is it not?
The agreement says 20. The general plan says 16 to 18.
Okay, the agreement says 20, so and can you tell us maybe why? Why did that go higher than the general plan, or?
It just was what had been negotiated and then to be presented to the council.
Okay, so with this site and other sites, we have 1,300 to 1,500 multifamily units going in right now, or being in the process. And those numbers are according to John. And all at once. So in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have a windfall of these things. And it's a real concern that if we need some wisdom and planning ahead here, and not just dumping all this stuff on. There's a lot of, the infrastructure isn't there, the roads, the traffic, the school, potential school problems down the road, and other safety issues and so forth involved as well. And I am totally against, personally, just as a resident, to continue to just approve these things. And this project that I noticed has that attached to it, that they can do the multifamily housing up to 20 per acre on there. So when we're talking about commercial zone and all the potential tax revenue and so forth, how many of those condos and apartments and so forth are they going to put in that area? It's a concern as to what's happening with this city. And I would hope that you would use some wisdom and some common sense. And I know they're saying, well, there's more revenue with more people, but there's also more costs in road widening and road construction and road upkeep and more officers and all that kind of stuff. But we can't make decisions for the future of our city just based on revenue. We have a lifestyle here. My wife and I have raised our family here. We moved here for a reason. And I think the great majority of North Ogden residents live here for a reason. They love the community. And of course it's going to grow. We all understand that. But when you're sitting in this chair and you're voting on things and people want to come and change zoning from single-family housing or commercial to multi-family housing and stuff, we're relying on you guys to protect our city and the future of our city. And sometimes we just have to say, no, we're not just going to keep building these things over and over and over, because we're going to have a windfall when these all come about in the next 2 or 3 years. So anyway, thank you very much for your time and listening. And like I said, I do know that your job is hard, but that's what you signed up for. And the last thing is, when this comes to a vote, if whoever voted against it last time, if you change your vote after the third, by the way, I don't think it's a good way to govern, to have the exact same thing voted on 3 times, because it has the appearance that somebody's behind this trying to push it the way they want it. But I would ask this, whoever changes their vote, so like Cheryl, if you change your vote, would you please give us the specific reason that you changed, the specific piece of information that the staff did not give you the first 2 times you voted, that was added this time to have you change your vote, so us as residents know why you changed your vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Mona Wald, and I live at 2457 North, 750 East. I want to thank you for your vote in favor. I am curious to know why Ryan Barker votes no, and I would like to know his reasoning. For the last year, sorry?
We haven't voted yet.
Okay. Well, you said no anyway, but anyway, I appreciate your consideration though, but I want to tell you a little bit about what I learned this last year. When I worked for a water company in Mountain Green, I learned some interesting things. Number 1, people steal water. That's because water is valuable in a desert state with growth. Number 2, there aren't any strong laws that exist against acts of terrorism when targeting our water resources or culinary water. But I believe they're working on that. Citizens are suing over water rights. A moratorium was placed while I was there on new construction due to the lack of water. If you have water and another city doesn't, the state will be happy to come and take your water. And they won't pay you for it. They'll take it. Aging infrastructure on water resources such as detention ponds and reservoirs are a huge threat in the state of Utah, because an earthquake is going to take away a lot of those and we'll have flooding. Water and water companies are competing for federal grants like crazy. So if you don't want this grant, someone else will want it and will take it. And then lastly, citizens in Mountain Green are pushing for recreational water resources. So there is a Silverleaf reservoir up there, and they are pushing for the right and ability to recreate on it. And I just want to say that I know that the state provides a lot of resources when it comes to detention ponds. I know you're not left alone. You're not going to be wondering what to do. You don't have to be feeling like you don't have answers to questions. I feel that the general feeling here is people are acting on fear. we have a lot of need for water in the state of Utah. And people dying in the military doesn't stop us from joining the military. We keep going because that's who we are. And traffic accidents don't stop us from driving. And I don't think that a water reservoir should stop us from building one, or drownings. The fear of the worst case scenario should stop us from doing anything that we need to do to prepare for the future and to prepare for what may come. So I thank you for your support and your consideration on this item. Water is a very valuable resource, and I wouldn't take it lightly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Gary Atterbury, 3030 North, 425 East, North Ogden, Utah. Philip, after I cut it off about the crystal balls, I'd like to go on and read. I looked it back up, and he's right. He said, also, Gary, please understand that I'll not be engaged in a Facebook comment battle with you. Thanks for understanding. It's also far too simplistic to refer to this as merely a pond. It's a Pine View Reservoir, 20 acre feet, and stormwater detention basin, 22 acre feet, that has many millions of our federal tax dollars coming back to us from the feds if we add a recreation component to it. How many millions are going to come back? If we're talking about what's it going to cost and everything, I think we need to know how many millions are going to come back to us.
I think it's on the presentation, it's about $7 million.
Excuse me?
In the presentation, it was about $7 million, Gary. It was
Yes.
already presented.
And it said that we would, the only 7 million I remember is what it was going to cost, and our portion of that was 1 point something million. But where is the water to fill this detention basin, the reservoir part of it? Where is that going to come from? Because I've walked along the canal many times, and I've never seen a pipe that, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but the $500,000 pipe that was installed just goes from the south end of the detention pond over to where the new one's going to be. Isn't that correct? How are we going to get the water to it? Like I said, it's a good half mile from the canal down to there. Are we going to have to spend another $1 million to get the water out of the canal down to the pipe that's in the ground? Because I haven't seen a pipe big enough to fill that 22 acre feet up. Maybe I'm being too simplistic, but it seems like somehow we got to get the water down to the pipe that's already in the ground. And also the part that's going to go from the existing pipe to actually into the reservoir. How far is that? And how much more is it going to be? No, I guess nobody knows. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hey, JD Dalpass, 734 East, 2700 North. I'd just like to express my support for this project. I've done a reasonable amount of homework with all the information that is available on the North Ogden City's website. And I feel like today's presentation helped clarify some of the questions that I had anyways. Some of the main points that I have and what I like about the proposed retention pond are these. I feel like it's a way for the city to financially capitalize on prime commercial land that's sitting on 2550 North right now. I think that's an excellent opportunity to take advantage of something that we have. I also believe that the sales tax revenue that comes from a business that comes into there, even if it's not as high as projected in the presentation, it is going to be revenue and it will be helpful to the city. I also believe that the cooperation between Pineview and the city right now is a very fiscally responsible way to go about things. When I was reading through the agreement, one of the things that I'm happy about is that Pineview is giving that $118,000 to the city to do this. And that's actually after the fact, so that's showing that they have a lot of good faith and they are excited about the project as well. And last but not least, if we're going to spend tax dollars, we might as well have a fun component to it. I think that a recreational component to the pond would be excellent. Of course, that's a major piece to getting the grant, is making sure that there's a recreational piece to it, and I think that would be fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your comment.
Nick McIntosh, 2230 North Fruitland Drive. Frustrated. This thing's like a bad character in a horror movie. When you think it's dead, it keeps coming back. Same thing, Country Boy. I was at that public hearing, that got voted down. Told people, I work with stuff, I got voted down. They're like, no, they didn't, they're building. Same thing here, it keeps coming back, coming back, coming back. I was at the public hearing that we had for this, and I appreciate Ryan. He was the only one that I know of the council that went down to Salt Lake to, I believe it was Daybreak, and seeing that mess that they have down there. They built this man-made thing around subdivision, think, oh, this is cool. It doesn't benefit the people that are there because they can't enjoy it because everybody else comes there. Same thing this. This won't be for North Ogden residents. This is going to bring everybody from Ogden, Harrisville, everywhere else. We won't get to enjoy it. And pardon me, I'm just a dumb hick. Their retention basin here on 2550 is not big enough. Willard Bay is a great big retention basin. What they did when it wasn't big enough, they built it up. Why can't we dig this out, make it a little bit deeper? That would take care of the problem and be a whole lot cheaper than this down here. The other issue I have is the considerations given to the landowner. We have a master plan in this city for a reason, but it doesn't seem like we follow it. That Country Boy Dairy, prime example. That wasn't zoned for that. We had the public hearing, got voted down. Next thing I know, they're building on it. So somewhere in there, it got rezoned. And that's what's frustrating about this, is it keeps coming back, coming back, coming back. And it's just never gonna end. The one thing I do ask is, there's a lot of the numbers thrown out here tonight. And this is prepared by 3 people that are seeking elected positions here in the city. And with this coming back up, it really has the appearance of backroom deals, and that's frustrating. And I'm not making any accusations, and I'm not saying there is, but the appearance is there. And this needs to be tabled tonight, respectfully asked to be tabled tonight, set for an open house, because there's a lot of questions obviously here tonight. Where the funding is, why we need what we do. Pineview, if it's for them, it's down there. How much is it going to benefit the city? From my perspective, it's going to go to Harrisville, Far West, everybody down, because water doesn't flow uphill. And I doubt if they're going to pump it up here. They might, but I would like to see what their plan is for it. The recreational part of it, go up to Causey. It'd be fun to go out here kayaking. Go up to Causey. That thing's huge. You could probably walk across there and not touch water on the weekends because there's so many people using that. We'd never get to use this out here. And it's going to be a drain on the city to start with, and it's going to be a drain on the city continually because we're going to have to continue to keep on funding it, and we're not going to get to enjoy it because it's going to bring everybody else from every other city. And I don't want to keep paying for everybody else's recreation on my tax dollar. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Kevin Burns, 795 East, 1925 North. I just ask that you just vote no on this tonight, put it away, and move on. There's been a lot of time on this, and I really believe that if any of you were to have someone try to sell you something as hard as you're working to sell this project, you just have to know there's something wrong with it. There has to be something wrong with this project. We're working way too hard to pass this, to try to get this through, to have it up in front of us for a third time with no new information. There was no new information in that presentation. There was nothing you hadn't heard. Some of the information had actually been tweaked to say that the recreation component was required to get this project to go through. That recreation component, as we discussed months ago, was only for the $100,000 grant from the state. It's not the entire project. It doesn't tie to the entire project. That's not a deal breaker. So I just leave you with a little quote that someone passed on to me at one point. May we always choose the harder right than the easier wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening. Fun. My name is Craig Speechley, 3452 North, 950 East. And in the spirit of full transparency, since we're all about transparency tonight, had I known that city council meetings were this fun, I'd have come more often. This is kind of fun. I brought some notes, and I'm going to deviate a little bit from those because I feel a lot of opposition tonight. And I'm here to voice support for this project, and I'm going to tell you why. For those of you that are opposing this project, I would like you tomorrow or sometime this week, take a drive up Harrison Boulevard and take a look at the water feature in front of Weber State University. It's a beautiful, beautiful water retention project that lends beauty to the community, and it's a focal point of the university. When they proposed that initially, there was a lot of opposition against that project. But number one, they needed the water retention project, and then they made it a focal point of the university. If the city does something similar, makes this water project, which we need a water retention facility that protects and takes care of the needs that the city has. If we do that and then make it a beautiful water feature and focal point that the city can enjoy, and I might note, there's no fence around that water feature at Weber State, okay? And there have never been, to the best of my knowledge, any recorded mishaps or injuries emanating from that project, okay? Now, that's only one part of this project. The other project is the advantages that it's going to be to the central business district of North Ogden City. When I moved here in 1980, we had to drive 12 miles round trip to even buy groceries. Now, a lot has changed since Washington Boulevard was 2 lanes, okay? We're now a 4-lane highway, speed limits have come down, and there's been a lot of progress and development in our community, and the population has probably more than doubled since we first originally moved here. In that time, we now have multiple grocery stores upon which to shop at. We have hardware stores, restaurants, movie theaters, gas stations, banks and credit unions. All of these things go into helping and build what I think is so valuable and important about North Ogden, and that's our quality of life. And that's really what we're talking about here tonight. Making decisions that are going to improve the quality of life for the citizens of North Ogden. This project has the opportunity to build upon that theme, building a quality of life and make North Ogden even better than what it is today. I hope that you vote and support this project. I certainly do. Thank you very much for listening and appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi there. My name's Dan Nixon, 933 East, 3450 North. Thank you, Craig. I'm here to voice support for this project. I'm also here to voice support for each of you up here. Thank you so much for what you do, and I'm so sorry for what you're hearing here. This is too bad. This is too bad that there's so much anger in here, and I just don't like it, and I'm sorry. I'm a developer of real estate. I've been doing it all my life. I've developed in 15 cities, from Draper to Smithfield. I've done projects in residential, industrial, commercial. So I know a little bit about retention. I know about water needs. I know how land needs to get developed. I know how land should be zoned in cities. I know what not only is best for developers, I know what's best for communities, and I know how to work deals with communities and cities. And that's what developers do. And I'm here to say just something a little maybe out of the box for you. As a city council, you're developers. You may not like the idea of being called a developer, but you are. The largest developer in northern Utah is Ogden City. They develop more real estate north of Salt Lake County north of Davis County than anybody. This is just a basic development deal. Number one, you've got to get that detention basin off of that commercial corridor. That is just ridiculous to have 7 acres of detention in the core commercial center that, by the way, the committee that I'm meeting on tomorrow that developed the new general plan, we said, you've got to get rid of that basin. That needs to be a core commercial center. To have a detention basin in the middle of your central business district, show me a city that has that. I don't know where one is. So I want to just thank you so much for what you're doing. I don't have a very good history of this thing. I've followed it pretty good, but I'm telling you what, this is just a no-brainer. That detention basin needs to move over there, and I don't know of a man that has more integrity than Orlifo Pikens as a land developer, and if you as a city have an opportunity to do a transaction with him, you should be grateful to do it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Linda Pipkin, 3011 North, 175 West. I just want to remind you guys of a few things. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So the proper role of government is to protect our rights to life, liberty, and property. And I'm really disappointed in North Ogden that they think it's the proper role of government to provide us with entertainment and recreation. To rob money from Peter to pay for Paul's recreation and entertainment is really wrong. And I think you're all wonderful people. Those of you that I know, I love you, I adore you. But please, do a little bit more research about what is the proper role of government. And even if you have these little things tempting you, this is a great deal, take this, we'll give you this if you do this. Really get on your knees and do some praying. And get in the library and do some studying. What is the proper role of government? And how should I be handling taxpayer monies from people that are struggling to make ends meet? And you just heard that we are possibly going to go into a recession. And so all of us have to tighten our belts. Please take a little extra time and figure out how North Ogden City can tighten their belts. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Brett Hamblin, 963 Deer Meadows Drive. I'd like to just say I'm all for this project, and one of the things that Charlotte brought out and I thought about before, but it seems like a bunch of people haven't caught wind of, is by appearances it looks like that Harrisville, Far West, Marietta-Slaterville would be the main gain from this just because they're downstream. Well, Charlotte mentioned this in the fact about the whole system. And I just like to point out, at least my impression, that I agree with that in that, yes, there's a lot of development, and it seems to me that there's more housing and development overall going on west of us than there is within North Ogden City. They're going to need more water, more secondary water and so forth. And there's only so much coming down above us to be used and so forth. If Pineview doesn't get a place, and this benefits us jointly with them, a place for a water basin for their use, I'm afraid it's going to be, okay, North Ogden, you can only water every other day because the rest of us got to go downstream for the more people. Not enough piping and so on and so forth, to where I'd rather see us go into this without a major expense with everything that was shown and so forth. It's, and the way I look at it, basically a wash with all the grants and so forth that comes in and the selling of the property and so forth, that we get a place to store water. Yes, it may obviously look like it's supposed for downstream, but I'd rather do this and give them that water than Pineview saying, okay, North Ogden, you can only water in every other day because the rest got to go downstream on the other days. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Brenda Ashdown, 193 East Pleasant View Drive. I realize the timing in this project and the election is unfortunate, but with the three names of people who were running for election to be on this project, I think was unfortunate. I think it was very poor planning. I'm hoping that the other people running had the opportunity to participate in this as well. You know, not up to you or up to me. I hope that that was done by the person putting this together. As far as the project itself, last time after you voted, I thought it was kind of left with the idea that the current detention pond would be dug deeper, and that would take care of our problem in North Ogden as far as what we need for detention ponds. I know that's on commercial property, but since that, my house, we call it the New Road, since 2700 went through, I don't see anybody standing in line buying that commercial property. And you know, maybe I don't understand a lot of the commercial and what goes on, but with what's going on right now as far as online shopping, and I think it's very unfair. You've got a strip of houses right there. And if your plan is to put, and I've mentioned this before, if your plan is to put big box shopping in there, that's unfair to those people. They need some kind of a barrier. And I think the least that should be would be maybe some medical or boutique buildings to give them a chance to have a barrier. And I don't see that that's going to bring you a whole lot of money in the city as far as commercial and taxes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I'd like to say that I appreciate the council reconvening. Randy Wynn, 2412 Barker Parkway. I'd like to express appreciation for reconsidering this. You know, the concern last time was that it was not clear, and as John has said, this is a very complicated arrangement, and so that's the reason that we started digging into this to get the facts together. As I mentioned last time, I felt like that it was clear that this would be a good idea for the city. But we worked to get numbers together that could be presented, and these are not our numbers. These numbers are what came off of John's sheets, and we just wanted to make a presentation that would make it clear so you could see how the numbers led to a decision. And to me, it is totally clear. I don't think we will ever get as good a deal for the city as we have in this project. And as has been pointed out, at some point, we need to get that pond off of our prime commercial area. We have very limited commercial area in our city, and that intersection there is the most valuable of all of our commercial property, and it's locked up with a pond that could be serviced anywhere else. And we have this opportunity to move it. We've done the work to get it ready to do. I think we've been confused a little bit with not understanding what this project does. This project is not about a pond. The park was an afterthought because they wanted to have something to make it accessible to the community as well. We need to move that off of our $2 million piece of property there. That's the prime thing. The second thing is we need to increase our irrigation. Our irrigation water and our detention water. Those are the things we're doing. The park is an extra, and our community will benefit by that. But we didn't start out like trying to build a park. The park will be a small park because most of it will be the detention pond. But we have helped to be able to do that, and it's going to be wonderful. By the way, I think the design for the park includes a chain link fence that goes around it, so that with kind of similar to the dog park where you have to be so tall to even get into the thing. I think this is an opportunity that will not come to us again, and I think the finances where we only pay 15% of the total project, we're not going to get a deal like that again, and the timing is such if we walk away. We're gonna look like we don't know what we're doing as a city. I highly recommend this, and I think, as was outlined earlier in the meeting, the financials are there. Everything lines up. Our opportunity is there. We have partners that are willing to help pay for this, and because there's common interest, and so we all come out with a better deal than we would have had, and. I appreciate the rethought that's gone into this because I think the facts bear out and make the decision easier than it would normally be. So I hope that you will go forward with this and accomplish the things that our city needs to have accomplished with it. I might say I do not hear the complaints about the density of the city with blind ears or closed ears. I think we do need to readdress how much population we're putting in. I think that's a separate issue. In other words, these projects are going to go up. Opicon is within the law. He's going to be approved to do a project. So that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing with this deal. This deal accomplishes the three things I outlined: clear up the commercial area, provide the extra detention, and provide a Pine View storage. That's done. Do we need to look at how dense we're making our city? I think we do. I think there was some good comments and concerns about that, but that's a different subject. But I think we ought to relook at this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Lynn Satterthwaite, 1143 East, 2750 North. And indeed, I am running for an office, and I was on the chart up there. And my interest initially expressed in the last meeting where we decided not to go forward with this, and I expressed concern at the end of the meeting because a couple of the council members did say we just don't feel like we have adequate information, and I think then rightly said we're not going to commit the city to that, and I respect that. But I went home realizing that, and I'll state here that I was on the council when we first decided to put in that pipeline through Montessori. Some will criticize that we should have had a sale, and we thought we did, and I think anybody else with that kind of a letter of intent would have made the same decision. The opportunity to put the pipeline through Montessori was just that, an opportunity, and it saved us considerable money. If we had to go back and do that, we'd be taking out cement and blacktop and going back through and replacing all of that. So I went home after that last meeting and decided I'm going to calculate what the cost is for this no vote. There's an immediate cost and then there's a delayed cost. The immediate cost is the $500,000 we'd already spent on the pipeline. The delayed cost is the agreement we made with Montessori because the city agreed that they would take their stormwater and put it in that basin that was going to be on the Double Lot Ranch property. And so at this point right now, we're obligated as a city to spend another, I've worked with Matt Harvickson on this, another $400 plus, almost $500,000 to pipe their storm drain water back to 2550. So if we do nothing, the immediate consequences are upwards of almost $1 million that we've spent. The more delayed cost goes something like this. I asked myself the question with Matt Harvickson in the room is, so what do we do if Double Lot Ranch owner exercises his rights to do whatever he wants with that land within the zoning ordinances, and he goes ahead and develops? Then we lose that opportunity. And so then Matt and I pursued the cost to find another basin. I said, Matt, we need to open up, where are the possibilities? We talked about Orion Junior High, and they have fields there. We do this in other schools, but Matt said the water table is so high there, we won't get hardly any capacity there. The other option that he brought up was the golf course. Apparently, the golf course has been purchased by a developer, I think. So there's a possibility that the land there could be used, but there too, water table is a big problem. And I personally know of about 3 residents that are on the borderline of the golf course, and all of them have sump pumps in the basement that run periodically. So what we decided we needed to do is to pipe the water from the current basin. We just used the piping that comes into the basin that's on the frontage road there in 26 or 2700, whatever you want to call the road there. And then we take it out 2550, and we'd have to go across 89. All of that in 72-inch pipe because this is the actual runoff. We're not detaining anything yet. So we have to increase the size of the pipe all the way out. And the total cost there was close to, well, it was $4 million. Charlotte had some of the numbers in the presentation. $4 million for construction, and we thought perhaps $2 million to buy property out there. So we're talking about $6 million, and some have expressed some concern about how we spend our money. If a consideration is that we spend our tax dollars wisely, then I think that it was worth the reconsideration and provide that kind of information to those that would listen. So I made phone calls and said, if you'll listen, I have additional information. And these council persons were gracious enough to go ahead and listen. So they got that information along with what Charlotte has put together that makes it, I think, a very good case that we should move ahead. I think it would have been and is a mistake to leave this on the table. Another thing I'd like to point out is that it's very clear we need more capacity. Some will say, well, don't we have enough? And I've talked to the Public Works Department. They frequently get calls from mayors to the west because water's coming to them too fast. And what Dave Espinoza does is they go around and take pictures of all of our detention basins and show they're full. And so the water that is coming in the storm just has to flow west. We've detained all that we can. And so I think it's pretty clear that we need additional capacity. And the plan right now, if you pursue this and vote for it, will give us 5 additional acre feet of capacity.
And I think that's a needed thing in the city. Pine View, doing a combined project has some real benefits, and I'm just thinking out loud here, but you think about the time between October and April. I realize water doesn't always flow during that time because it's too cold, but that whole basin, if in our agreement with Pine View, they pump that out, we get all of that capacity, all of the irrigation capacity, and all of our capacity that we're banking on for those 6 months. And then you think about the reality of if we know that if the weather forecasters are telling us there's a big storm coming, I mean big, then and it's big enough that Pine View will say, well, I think that people will cut back on watering, and so they'll pump theirs down, or they'll slow down the water coming from Pine View Dam or wherever else it comes from, and that'll give us more capacity for the time. I know that the Ben Quick won't commit to certain capacities there, but I know that there's the possibility in an agreement with him that this detention basin not only gives us 5 extra acre feet of water, but the possibility of more, depending on the situation. So I think it'll be all of our basins have fixed capacity. This will be a basin that has some variable capacity to the city's benefit. So I think it's a great way to go. Finally, some have been critical of the landowner getting these coupons, for impact fees. I think that's really a good deal for the city. Mr. Opikins I think as the city builds out, the only thing that will happen is that impact fees will go down. So he's giving us the benefit of taking the pay for the land with the exchange for the impact fees that we forgive. And those impact fees, I think, as time goes on, will continue to go down as the city builds out. We'll have less need, and we will have developers that will challenge our impact fees as we get closer to build out. So all of that said, I think we've got to be careful and not be counseled by our fears. Landowners do have rights. We do what we can to make it possible to have a great city so that a zirconium mine doesn't move in next door to your house. But there's still a lot of things that we have to give landowners the opportunity to exercise because they do own the land. I am in favor of this, and I hope that you'll vote to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Name Bill Hart, 2285 North, 1225 East. I'm wondering if I can become a write-in now.
Spell your name again.
Spell it. I'll leave you a card. I just had a couple of comments. I've been in the pond at Weber State. Don't go there. Threw away a good pair of shoes. My blanket I had to send to the cleaners 4 times to get the geese, wet out of it. But other than that, it's a good place. There's been a lot of noise about water, and I notice every day that people aren't watering, or they are watering between 10 a.m., 6 p.m. That's still a rule. I think conservation is something we need to address, which we don't. And I think the city council, leadership should address these issues. In fact, maybe North Ogden Police, instead of hiding behind the church up on 2600, should be writing tickets for people that are watering. What do you think of that one, Mayor? Okay. I'm opposed to it. I just think, there's going to be kids drowning. Sure, we have insurance for that, but there's a lot of waterborne things that crawl in different places in little kids' noses and whatnot. The swimming pool has measures to prevent the stuff that happens, but I don't think you could prevent any of these things that will happen if young kids are in there flopping around. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
All right, I'm Scott Schuman. I live at 3423 North, 900 East. So this is what one of these meetings looks like, huh? I'll tell you a couple of things. First of all, I've followed the news on this and really frustrated it's taken 3 times, right? But I'm actually really happy that you did, because it's the right thing to do. And I'm not going to spend 5 minutes telling you why, because if you don't know by now, you haven't studied it.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on. So the issue here is the discussion or action on the 2550 basin design. Council, discussion or questions? Councilman Barker.
I'll speak into the microphone. Before we get on the discussion with the pond, I actually like to thank Charlotte for coming. Not just because she's a candidate running. If any citizen wants to present something to the city council, they're able to get on the agenda. We had someone email us today that wants to get on an agenda. We're working on getting them on an agenda. Any citizen can come and present. If she's a political candidate, that's fine. I'm not putting myself on the agenda because I don't want to present. You hear enough of me up here, but I'm just saying thank you for coming. Even though I don't always agree with it, you're still free to come. Now we can go back to the pond.
But Mayor, I'm going to make something clear. I've worked for 53 years to maintain a strict honesty and integrity. And it would hurt me to think that anybody would think that my motive was anything but for the best of the city and the citizens. So I am recusing myself from this discussion. So I will not be voting.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Councilman Swanson?
I'll just comment on why I'm not recusing myself. I spoke to 3 different attorneys that specialize in open meetings laws and what's been the accusation that's been made that somehow there's some kind of dishonesty. It's not an uncommon accusation from the source. And there is no reason for recusal. There is no personal benefit coming from a campaign contribution. I can't buy myself a Coke out of that and have any kind of personal benefit. The only thing I can do is purchase a campaign sign. There's nothing personal. And again, I spoke to 3 very high-powered attorneys here in Utah, knowing that this would be an accusation and would be a question. One of the attorneys kind of laughed and he said, you know, if every politician in the state of Utah recused themselves from something that they would vote on, wherein they had received a contribution from somebody attached to that vote, then we'd have no politicians in the state of Utah. Nobody in the Senate could vote. Alan Christensen all the way down. Nobody in the House. Kyle Anderson all the way down. None of them could vote on anything because there would always be some connection from some lobbyist, somebody who's put in a check, somebody who's made a contribution through somebody else. It just is the way it is. So I will not be recusing myself because there is no necessity.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll actually speak on the issue of the pond. I'm still going to vote. I was sitting here tonight, and I've met with Charlotte a few times. I've met with Lynn at least once. I've talked with Blake a few times, and I've told everyone the same thing. Financially, it makes sense to me. I get it, but I've been trying to figure out what makes me not accept this project, and you want to know why I don't want to vote on it? The location. I don't want a detention, retention, irrigation, recreation, whatever it's going to be in the middle of townhomes or high-density housing. If it was in a different location, I'd be more willing. If it didn't have recreation, I'd be more willing. I just don't like the location. That's my big thing. I hear all the time, we hear about it. There's another project in our city that some people don't like the location. They love the project, they just don't like the location. This might be another one of those projects. So right now, I'm not sold on the location.
Yeah.
And also, on the note for Pineview, even though you're building on the west end of our city, it doesn't matter to me. I work for a district, you're a district, you don't see city boundaries, city borders. As a fire district, our ambulance doesn't stop between North Ogden and Pleasant View, we cover the whole thing. So with you building on our border, it doesn't matter that it's not in North Ogden, but North Ogden's having to help pay for it. Pleasant View's hoping to pay for it. They charge the same money for their residents as they do to North Ogden. So they don't stop at our borders. They're a district. They cover the whole area. So I have no complaints with you building in our city, but I just don't like the location of this pond.
Okay. Councilwoman Stoker?
This doesn't get any easier the third time. I've talked to Charlotte, I've talked to John, I've listened to Lynn. I voted no twice, and the reasons are basically still the same. Safety, I don't like the location either. If it wasn't the pond, I would feel more comfortable with it. There's just too many things that still don't feel right. When we were raising our children, they'd say, well, everybody else is doing it. And the comment always back was, well, if everybody was jumping off the cliff, would you too? So just because it sounds right doesn't necessarily mean so it's right. And I mean, I've talked to Mr. Opikins, and anything that he does, I do know he does a bang-up job, and it's very nice. And he will develop his land, and it will be nice. As far as, where was I going with this? I have forgot my thoughts. I have to think. He will, and we do have, I know, we do have to move the retention basin. It's not a detention basin, it's a retention to hold the water back, and it will have to be moved. Well, when the Public Works came up, everybody said we needed to bond, this was the only way to do it. And that was a lot of money, and it got a lot of residents involved and a lot of people thinking. And we did come up with something that was affordable to the city and to the citizens, and it didn't cost us a lot of money. There is always options. Choices are available, options are available. And this doesn't necessarily mean that this maybe is a better deal or there isn't something better out there, but there's other options to look at, and I did talk to John, and there are choices. They still can be made. And so that's my thoughts on it and my feelings, and I honestly would hate to say if somebody drowns, whatever reason why, I could not live with that. Those are still my same thoughts.
Well, I guess I'll need to say something. I've been in favor from it. If anybody who's been here knows I've been in favor of it the whole time. I still am. So.
Other questions, comments? You're pretty quiet tonight.
Wore out.
We've had this discussion a lot of times.
Beat up.
I'm not sure, but there'll be a pond down there anyway, because the people down there need the irrigation to irrigate Double Lot Ranch or whatever the case may be. So I think there's going to be a pond there anyway. That's my thought, but since I've had this presented to me a couple of years ago, it looks to me like the only way to do it feasibly and be able to accomplish it without a lot of cost to the city. I don't know of any other way. That's my opinions at this point in time.
Mayor, we do have some staff members and folks here if council has any questions for anybody. Just make sure if you didn't see them out there anyways, they are here. So.
Yes.
Ben, can you come to the podium, please? A question was asked earlier, how does your water...
And quick, General Manager, Weber Box Elder Conservation District.
Oh, touche. The, because I think I got you once in meeting, didn't I? Yeah, something.
Oh, multiple times so far.
Okay. I like your spirit. How does the Pineview water get to your reservoirs?
North Ogden Irrigation Canal.
Okay.
To that reservoir specifically.
To that one specifically?
Yes.
Okay. That's the question that was asked, so. Gravity?
Water goes down.
So are we on A, 9A, Mayor?
We are on a 9A, and if there's no questions or discussions, I would entertain a motion.
Well, 9A says we are looking at detention basin design, and from looking at the packet, is the intention of this piece to be, John, will the facility have perimeter trail, exercise stations, Bowery, restroom, pickleball, volleyball, kayaking, paddleboard, fishing, horseshoe playground? Is that A?
So from the staff perspective, we tried to kind of guess on how the council wanted to approach this if, depending on what you voted. If you wanted, you could actually vote on whether or not to do the facility.
Okay.
And then move into the other items, because then we know if we need to go down that road or not.
Okay. Well, Mayor, my mind hasn't changed. I'll make the motion. I move that we approve the facility as we've discussed, and in partnership with Pineview and North Ogden City to provide the detention basin / Pineview Reservoir with the recreational component so that we can qualify for the grant.
It's been moved by Councilman Swanson.
And I'll second like I did the last two times.
Okay. It's been seconded by Councilman Turner.
Nice.
Thank you. We'll begin the voting with Councilman Barker.
I'm still gonna say no. I don't like the location.
Okay. Councilman Severie?
I'm recused.
Okay. Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker?
I've done this 2 times. I thought the last time it would die. It's come back. My answer is still no. My vote is still no.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
So we're sitting at...
Mayor, that leaves it in your lap.
You get a vote.
You have to break the tie.
Did you see his face?
Surprise. You just
Sorry,
got
Mayor.
very pale.
Send me down the road?
Pardon me?
I think this is the first tie vote I've heard you vote on.
It's only one of maybe 2 in a lot of years.
Well, I've seen this project, like I say, for the past 2 or 3 years, and if there's some safety issues out there that are a big concern, we can address those and make sure that it is a safe place. but for the purpose of storing water, for the purpose of detention basin, for the purpose of relieving our ground for commercial purposes, then I would vote yes. Motion passes.
So someone asked why we don't want clapping and cheering. And the reason is because it honestly divides people and it causes, I mean, so if you can kind of keep those down. I mean, it's great that we can agree to disagree. Minnesota Vikings are the best football team in the NFL. That's my opinion.
We won't get any clapping for that.
But I'm just saying, it's great to have disagreements and things, and that's really what it is for, is just to make sure we don't have, someone mentioned there's a lot of tension. Okay, now we need to move on. And I was shocked that it came back to the third time, to be honest with you, so.
Okay, item B, discussion or action to consider a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Weber Box Elder Conservation District for the 2550 detention basin.
So Mayor, we're actually, the one thing that Phil wanted to do, or Councilman Swanson wanted to do, we need to, the engineers for the project have asked that we look at this list of items and give a yes or no on what the council wants.
Real quick question, John.
Yeah.
Mr. Severing recused himself. Now that we voted on it, and can he now come back into the conversation without having conflict that way, or is that, or does he need to just keep quiet? Not that we don't want him to keep quiet, we do, but.
Whenever a council member feels there's a conflict and they recuse themselves, it's always their decision on what they're involved in, what they aren't.
Okay.
So it leaned to him on if he feels like he's satisfied what where this is moving on to, not the decision on if it's coming, but how it's going to be.
Okay.
If he felt appropriate, he'd be more than able to join back in.
Thank you.
So, council, this is the list of
Understand if you don't.
10 items, and the reason that we have this list is the environmental consultant has to include certain, just a list of recreational components that will be included in the document that's sent back to the NRCS. And so there could be other items that we would want to consider, but this is at least the list they gave us of these 10 that would be good for an up and down. I don't know how you want to approach this, if you want to go through each one, thumbs up, thumbs down, or what you want to do.
I think that's the simplest way to do it.
Okay.
We all go on the board and make it up.
Yeah, just ask and let us say,
Okay. So I'm happy to do that, Mayor, if you want
Go
to
ahead.
count the votes, or. So the first one would be the perimeter trail. This is that multi-use walking trail around the facility. Does anyone
Yes.
object to that?
No, yes.
Okay. The next one would be the exercise stations. That would be tied into the perimeter trail as well. You might have seen them along the Ogden River Parkway.
It's an exercise station.
They're typically a passive.
I walk so much on these trails. What is one?
I don't see any reason for it.
We go to the gym. We're firefighters.
Have a gym in your station.
We have gyms, yeah.
So like at Ogden City, there are things where they'll be like, jump on these metal or boxes, or jump over these, or walk along this. They're typically a non-moving apparatus that you interact with. So we have it. See, one thumbs down. Okay, we have 4 thumbs down and 1 half. The next one would be a Bowery, or up to multiple Boweries. I think we've seen several. So we got thumbs up on that one, Annette, for Boweries.
That's number 3.
Restrooms, thumbs up from everybody. Pickleball.
If we can make it work.
They want a pickleball court, so.
I would like it, but.
It's $100,000 a court.
Well.
So if you're open, we could add it as we're exploring the option in the design. So we just have to.
I like the option, but I just don't know if we.
I don't think
I
it fit.
affordable, and I think we can have
Matt
it.
would be able to tell us, will it fit on there?
Where's Matt?
One court or two courts?
I think the most you could get are two, and you might lose some parking, so you gotta consider how many people would park, you know, for that.
The pickleball will float, though.
Okay, number 6?
So,
I
think
It was kind of a maybe.
so volleyball would be the next one. It'd be probably a similar issue with size.
That's bigger.
No
No on that one?
No.
Number 7's the kayaking and paddleboarding, and then there's a subset of, hey, do we want to require life jackets?
I want kayaking.
Yes and yes for me.
Yep,
Okay, so there's 3-ish.
I'm all for it.
So majority are saying yes. Fishing,
No.
everyone says no. Horseshoe type activity, that's something that could fit in near the trail. There might be safety concerns with flying horseshoes.
They don't float.
They don't float, that's true, they would go into the
Even little bitty
water.
ones.
Okay, so is that, I didn't see thumbs. Pretty much no's over across the board. And then some sort of a playground facility.
If we can get one, yeah.
If we can fit it in there.
Yeses for that.
I'd rather have playground than a pickleball.
Okay.
Playgrounds don't float.
Playgrounds don't float.
The rubber chips
Okay.
do. Well, that's true.
Okay, so we'll pass that on to the engineers, as far as the list goes. Yeah.
Okay.
So, John, do we need to, this is the staff report. We don't have to vote on that, though, do we?
No, so there's
Just
nothing
it.
to.
Okay, never mind.
So really, it's basically just letting the engineer know what
Okay.
to include, there'll be some designs that'll be worked out, you know, where the playground goes or where there's Boweries and restrooms and things, but that'll be worked through.
Okay, then, we are now prepared to address the action to consider resolution approving the interlocal agreement with Weber Box Elder Conservation District for the 2550 detention basin.
We have a resolution number.
06-2019.
So, council, I'm happy to talk about this. This is essentially, the most important piece of this document is this tiny printed cost estimate that Jones and Associates put together as we were starting to talk about this project. You know, it's included more people. For example, it didn't used to have this column on it when it was first conceived, the NRCS grant, because the grant, we didn't know about it when we were first starting to put this project together. But it has been added, and they are the largest contributor. But this kind of outlines the cost sharing between Pineview and North Ogden City. In particular, it typically identifies, you know, when there's something in only the Pineview column or only the city column, that's entirely a city expense. And if it's in both columns, then it's a shared expense and shared at the ratio that's in the columns. So not everything's going to come in at exact dollar amounts, and so this agreement basically just says we will work through this Exhibit B to make sure that we're sharing costs as originally anticipated. And there is the other thing that was on the agreement that was mentioned by Pineview when they presented last time was the contribution towards the pipe that has already been installed. This is the amount their engineer told them it would cost them to get the pipe if they had to run it themselves, so they were, you know, willing to participate. It's not a 50-50 split, obviously, because they don't need a large pipe like we do for stormwater to get it there. So they're not contributing half because they don't need that big of a pipe. So the rest of it is kind of nuanced attorney code language talking about how we're not creating a separate legal entity, the individual entities, it's a cooperative agreement. It's not a, it's not a creation of like a fire district, or some groups actually do with interlocal groups create an entity. For example, we have the Weber Morgan Narcotics Strike Force. That's actually an interlocal agreement with all of the policing agencies in Weber County and Morgan County. So that actually did create an entity, for example. So are there specific chapters here or sections that the council would like a little more clarification? Okay. So this one is, so when you do the resolution, there'll be an agreement number, and the resolution will be accepting that agreement number.
So just one clarification. On the packet, it had the resolution and the draft and all that stuff, and then it had a drawing, which is this drawing, that was with it, and then it had the breakdown from Jones. So we're not agreeing to the actual drawing because we don't know exactly how that drawing is going to be, correct? We're just agreeing to the agreement with the double lot, or not, I mean with the water district, right?
So I'll just pull up that language about the exhibit. Sorry, our projectors are being funny today. It might be easier to do this. So this is actually, that map is showing the proposed location of the project, not the design of the project.
Right, but even though it has some design elements in it, it's just the location.
Yeah,
That's
I just wanted to make it clear for
That's why I
those who
understood
haven't
it,
gone
so.
through it, yeah.
Any questions or discussion? And I would entertain a motion on 06-2018.
We have an agreement first,
Now, the
right?
Agreement number is A16-2019.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve agreement A16-2019 as discussed.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve agreement. Is that 16?
A16. yeah.
A16-2019. Any other discussion or questions? We begin the voting then with Councilman Severine.
I think I better not vote on B and C. That's a support to the major project, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker?
How does one vote when you approves and you say no? It's like.
I understand that. I feel comfortable on the basin design, the park design, but these are supports to the main.
So they're the support to the basin, the water.
Let's approve the agreement with them.
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Swanson, sorry. Councilman Barker?
Yes.
Motion carries. Approved. Move to item C.
Mayor, I'll move now that we approve resolution 06-2019 in conjunction with agreement 16-2019.
Is that 2019 or 18?
2019.
2019, okay. It's been moved that we approve agreement 06-2019.
No, it was
Resolution.
Resolution, sorry. Too many words.
Sorry.
And I'll second that, whatever the mayor said.
Okay. It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? We'll begin the voting then with Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Are you still out?
Yeah, I'm still out.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now we move to C.
Yeah. C is the Double Lot Ranch.
Discussion or action on the agreement with Double Lot Ranch for the purchase of the property for the relocation of the 2550 detention basin.
So, council, this one, there's just a few things I just want to make sure are clear as we talk about it. That the same map that was used with the Weber Box Elder Conservation District Agreement is attached identifying the property. There's three other maps. Oh, so this is, sorry, there's two other maps. So if you can't tell, I had to re-download Adobe Photoshop or Adobe PDF Reader today, and it's being glitchy, so we'll try and work through that. There's two, what I would probably refer to as off-site improvements that are contemplated in this agreement. One is this sewer, or this storm line from here to the intersection of 2100 North and Fruitland. This is a project that the city would be doing anyways. As part of our capital facilities plan. It's actually in our capital facilities plan. And so when when Double Out Ranch had asked that this be memorialized, it was easy for the council easy to include it in the agreement because it's something we were going to do anyways. But just so you are aware, the estimate is somewhere between $83,000 and $100,000 to put this line in. Like I said, it's something we would have done anyways. The next one is on 2600. Mountain Road is over here on the east edge on the far right. And then there's a piece of property over here on the bottom left that's the Brown property at about 1125 east. In this agreement, the Double Out Ranch folks were agreeing to run a pipe from this piece of ground up here, which they own, down to 1125 east, and then the city, as part of this obligation, was taking on the responsibility of taking that pipe the rest of the way to where we were planning. We have planned at this area to route the pipe south, or at least give the option for the pipe to run south. So there's currently a pipe that runs straight west and drains down through Barker Park and that drainage channel. This box that we're proposing to be put in and drain it to the south into the Oaklawn Park Basin actually gives us the option to route the water in two different directions. They ultimately end up in the same area as they cross over into Harrisville, but it's a little bit better to be able to pick between the two. So this isn't a project that's in our capital facilities plan, but was identified as a good thing to do for our purposes, and it worked out with them laying the pipe all the way to 1125 east for us to take the obligation. We are in negotiations with this property owner to potentially have them put the pipe in for us. It's about a $25,000 pipe in exchange for some capacity in the Oaklawn Basin, which is currently underutilized. But that'll be coming back to the council at a future point. But every anticipation is that this project won't cost the city money, but it will cost us some of our capacity in Oaklawn Park Detention Basin, the one that's at the very back. I think oftentimes people will sled back there until they hit the fence. So those are the two projects. One of the other things that we talked about was there's two solar permits that are typically valued between $500 and $800 each. So that's $1,000 to $1,600, as well as two building permits, which is the fee the city charges, which is about $1,500 a house. That doesn't include all the impact fees and things. Most houses, when they connect or when they build, they pay a lot of impact fees to almost about $17,000 between the fire district, the Weber, or the sewer district, and city impact fees. So it's not waiving those, it's only waiving the actual inspection fee. The other thing, and this is the one that I think it's been talked to a lot. Well, there's two things. One is the exchange of value. So the property, we're valuing at $200,000 and doing a impact fee exchange, which is allowed for under state statute. Essentially, they give infrastructure or property that the city needs and get a waiver. The value of that is about the $1,300,000, 20 some odd dollars. I think it's about $23,000 is what it rounds out to. So it's a little more than the 200,000 an acre, but we are also, I think, getting a little more acreage than the 6.6 acres, so it rounds out. And then Double Lot Ranch is also giving us those easements across their property for the pipelines to get, as it leaves the detention basin, it has to get piped back out to one of our existing lines. And so we're getting easements for those as well. And there's about 140,000 square feet of easement that we're getting with this project that is kind of offset by these improvements in like the sewer lines and things that are getting put in. The kind of the final big discussion is that discussion on density. It was brought up, the idea that the council is essentially agreeing to give them up to 20 units to the acre with the R4 zoning. So it's I wonder if our projector's dying, because it's been doing this in a lot of meetings lately. But the density is kind of a placeholder. It's anticipated that there'll be an MPC zone applied on this property. The developer is currently working with, or the landowner is currently working with the developer to put units on this property. They'd be residential units. And the proposal they've given to the staff to present to the planning commission for a recommendation to the council. So it sounds like hopping, but is for 365 units, 144 of which are apartments. And I think I should have the numbers in front of me, but the others are townhomes and what we call twin homes, but some people would call them a duplex. It just depends on, they have a common wall that they share. I think I thought there was 60 or 70 twin home duplexes, and the rest were townhomes. So that's the proposal. But as has been identified, this agreement does say 20 units to the acre, and on 34 acres, that would be 680 units. That's not currently what's being asked for.
Wasn't it 12?
12. Oh, so it averages out to about 12 units to the acre, understanding that there are some, there are some apartments in there at the front, up near the front of 2550. And they've also are planning to put in some commercial, which is like some office space, which is one of the things that the MPC zone encourages as part of that. So that'll come back before the council for approval. Understanding that the reason the agreement is written the way it is there's no guarantee that they get that zoning. But if they don't, then they are allowed to develop based on the R4 zone, which is typically townhomes. There are some apartments in the city that are in like a two-level apartment that's an R4, but it just gives them something to fall back on so that the city doesn't pull the rug out from under them. And then also, I think as I identified, this area was slated for what we call medium density in the general plan. That's the document that was passed by the council and recommended by the general plan steering committee in 2015. It picked this as an area for not high density, but dense housing. High density, density in general is one of those words that everyone thinks of something different. Like whenever you say downtown, some people think of Salt Lake and others think of Plain City. The downtown area.
Plain City?
I do. So I guess that's because I always tell people I grew up in the hood of Plain City because we were a block away from downtown. So those are kind of the details of the agreement. Are there any other specifics that you want to talk about or go through?
John, in looking at the agreement in the whereases, excuse me, it's page 133 in the packet. Some language that should change in there, the opportunity, whereas the city sees the opportunity to construct a fishing pond. I think we should strike fishing pond.
Okay. I think I don't think they have a big concern, or the landowner has a big concern over what happens on our side of the fence,
I
other
just
than
think it
it's,
clarifies the language.
it's landscaped. And this is the exact, this should be the same version that the council saw a year, 15 months ago, something like that. We haven't made any changes.
Have agreement number?
A17-2019.
Any other questions or discussion from the council? Then I would entertain a motion to,
May I make one comment? I was concerned about the R4 zoning, so I pulled up the zoning map. Everything around it's already zoned R4. So, I mean, usually when we change zoning, we change what's to the neighboring. So, the zoning map's already changed. Well, not changed. Everything around this development is R4 zoning. So it would not make sense to make it R10 or R15, whatever. So, in case anyone was wondering, I have no issue with making it R4 because everything around it is R4.
any other questions or discussion, comments? I'd entertain a motion then to approve the agreement with Double Lot Ranch, A17-2019.
Mayor, I move that we approve Agreement A17-2019, approving the agreement as discussed with Double Lot Ranch.
And I will second it.
It's been proposed by Councilman Swanson, seconded by Councilman Turner. Any other question or discussion? We can vote in then with Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
As the first two times I would have voted, yes.
Okay. Councilman Barker?
Yes.
Are you in, Councilman Severie?
Nope.
Okay. Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 10, discussion on food trucks in parks. Presenter will be John Call, City Manager Attorney.
Thanks for being here, Ben.
So, council, we've had two different food truck operators who want to sell their wares during football season or other games. And we currently don't have a provision or a way to allow that to happen. Staff's perspective is it makes sense to do it. It's kind of a trend and we're hoping a benefit to the citizens. But we'd want to figure out if the council was okay. There are some possible negative impacts. Obviously, now there's a chance that it could be seen as moving commercial into residential areas. Most of our parks are in residential areas. We'd want to try and work out something with them where they have to schedule when they're going to be there so we don't have too many on top of each other or competing food trucks. The two that I think have wanted to come in are both snow cone individuals, so they probably, in the coming months won't be selling their wares because it's too cold. But it would open the door for others to come in and get involved. Staff was thinking the best option might be to provide an agreement, a standard agreement that all food truck operators can sign that just says, here's the rules, you're allowed to do it, and then there might be a consideration for them sharing some of the profits with the city. I know there's been some comments about that not being a pleasant option. A good example is, Pepsi has the exclusive rights to sell their drinks in our parks, like machines and stuff, and they share a portion of that back to the city. We don't get a lot of money from it. The other entity, we have a vendor down at the pool who does the same thing. They share a portion of the profits back, and we used to up at the concession stand in Oaklawn Park, but we don't have the concession stand up there anymore. It was redesigned to just have storage, right, Tiffany? There's no concession stands in the park anymore? So this would be essentially replacing that concession stand or concession stands in Wadman and everywhere. What's the council feeling on this?
So, the gut trucks can basically come and, we're not charging them a fee to come and sell in our park.
The idea would be the fee would be profits. So they're pretty heavily regulated by the state on where they report their sales tax. And if they're caught not reporting sales tax in the right spot, then they get in trouble. So they would report the sales they made at the day and then share a portion of the profit with the city, but.
Why, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know why we're not charging them a fee to come there, even if it's like $20 or something. They ought to charge something that they're.
State passed a law that says you can't.
Who did?
The state.
What state?
So they.
Okay, I thought.
They've passed some
As a
regulations on food trucks that keep we have to keep our hands out. We do have a little more leeway because we own the property that they're selling on.
I thought it was like a vendor, like any vendor, like into the parks, that you charge them. Anyway, all right.
So, yeah,
Would
Councilman.
they be parking on the street or in the parking lot?
Oh, it'd be in the parking lot.
Parking lot, okay.
And we'd probably have to go out and pick a designated spot and cone it off, especially at some of the parks that get a lot busier. There might be an opportunity to, if it was successful in the coming years, to actually put a location that was behind the curb so they could get up out of the parking lot, and be kind of out of the flow of traffic. We do have an ordinance in place that says if they are setting up, they have to be on the curb side of wherever they're setting up so that people are standing on the curb or the sidewalk to order, not out in the flow of traffic or parking lot traffic in this case. So
would you be bringing this back with language?
Well, so that's the question. There's two options. One, we could reach out to other cities and use their agreement and just send it out and let people start doing it. If we want to bring it back and have the council approve the standard agreement, it'd be September 24th is the next meeting that we'd be able to do that.
Football season would almost be over by then.
Yeah, and so I don't think staff has a strong opinion either way, other than there are two people interested in doing it, and it might be a nice little pilot program for a couple of months. And
Yes.
I have no problem with this. I think it's a great idea, as long as we limit it. I don't want to have sort of. If you do a food truck event, then we get the sales tax in our city. If it's an event, if it's just one or two food trucks, we don't get the sales tax, and they report back to their city they're licensed in. So maybe just call every Saturday a food truck event, and then we get our sales tax.
Well, and
a multi-park food truck event.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can explore the option of saying, hey, if you want to come, you have to pay $150, and just see if that. I'd want to reach out to the food truck organization down that's based in Salt Lake and just see if they've heard of that before and if there's a specific prohibition on that.
But where you said like a couple of snow cones, I think that'd work great for parks.
Councilman Swanson?
How do we prevent a food truck war from happening at a park where there's a large, I'm thinking Wadman Park, where there might be 2 or 3 soccer games going on at any one time, and you have a couple of food trucks that have arranged to be there and a couple of other operators who just are going to show up, and how do we manage that?
So it would be code enforcement, and on the weekends, it'd be the officers that are on staff. Our code enforcement officer doesn't work on the weekend, so it'd be a uniformed officer. And I do know that the Salt Lake Food Truck Organization, that there's 2 or 3 in the state, and every truck typically belongs to one of them. They're pretty aggressive on their members who aren't following rules themselves, because they don't like the bad reputation of the bad operators. So, but I know Pleasant View did a few of those food truck events this past summer, and I think
they're well attended.
They were well attended, and it was good. But we would still have that option as well. This would just be I think the idea was we'd let one truck in during any time frame, and they'd have to reserve kind of through the Public Works or the Parks Department. And Tiffany is here. She might have some other comments or questions if you wanted to pick her brain. She also might just prefer to sit in her seat, and I don't know.
Push her, chief.
So if you're okay with this, council, do you want to move forward with, we'll bring an agreement back at the end of September, or just let the mayor approve whatever we pull together language-wise and
Let's bring it back.
I'd like to have it come back.
I wouldn't mind seeing them approve something, or the mayor pick something and try it for a month. Like you said, football, soccer is gonna end here before, by the time it comes back, it'll be over.
How long's the season? When does it end?
Football ends the end of September, October.
How about soccer?
It's about the same.
About the same?
So you'd only have a couple weeks. Like,
I don't care.
if we limit it to one truck per event,
But I mean, are you?
and they're
So-
not taking all the parking, and I'd say let them try. That's my opinion.
For the first, like.
Okay. Well,
For a
and-
month or so.
And one thing we could do, council, if, because there might be a concern over, hey, what are we charging them? Are we charging them? If you want, we could reach out to these groups and say, okay, for the next month, before the council puts something in place, you can do it without, you're gonna sign an agreement that you're not gonna do these things, but there's not a monetary commitment. And we'll see how well it goes. We can talk with them and then include that in the discussion on the 24th or the beginning of October.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So we won't charge them until we hear back on the next meeting, but we'll let them see how it goes. Okay.
Item 11, discussion or action to consider an ordinance amending the North Ogden City Employee Personnel Policy. Presenter, Annette Spendlove, City Recorder.
I just want to put this off till the next meeting. This could be a little long.
There's only like 200 pages.
We're already through like 100.
Have you read them and prepared to discuss?
I actually looked through quite a bit of it. So
Council, whatever your feeling is here.
I'm okay tabling it. And as a urgent matter,
No, we could wait a month.
could we put it on the 3rd? I
No,
mean,
because I won't be here.
oh,
I won't be here on the 24th either. But I will be here on the first one in October.
and that's okay to wait till then?
You know what? Actually, Jamie Jones was the one that did most of this for us, so let's put her, Jamie, could you be here on the 24th? Of September? Jamie, we'll put it on the 24th.
So then I move.
Are you upset that
We
we're
need to
not doing it
make a
tonight?
motion to move that, or?
Yes.
Well,
Table it.
so I think Jamie is here for that item. So,
Let's move it.
okay. So are you okay, council, putting that first on the agenda on the 24th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we need to make a motion to table?
Need to make
it?
a motion to table that.
I
Okay.
move that we table the discussion on the ordinance amending the North Ogden City Employee Personnel Policy to September 24th.
Been moved by
Second.
Councilman Severine,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Stoker to table this motion, table item 11 until September 24th.
Yes.
I won't be here either. but-
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 12, this is another one, Councilman Swanson, you want to?
No, this one, I thought this had been taken off the agenda, knowing how long tonight would probably go, so I'll move that this be moved to an agenda item at a later date to yet be specified.
Okay, it's been moved that we move item 12.
I'll second it.
It's been seconded by Councilman Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Meeting's open for public comments.
Still Kevin Burns, still at 795 East, 1925 North, I think. She's not saying anything different. Hey, that's a rough one, thank you. big night, but hey, we're moving forward. That's right. We'll work together and we'll do what we're supposed to do. I heard some comments about the pickleball courts, and I'm looking forward to playing pickleball next summer at the new park. And I just we heard the number $100,000 per court. We heard that a few weeks ago at one of the meetings, and I heard Councilman Swanson again say that tonight. And I reached out to Mayor Truitt in Huntsville. They have 3 really nice pickleball courts in their town, and they paid $87,627 for 3 courts. So whatever they have done, please reach out to them and figure out how we can get pickleball courts for less than $30,000 a court. So that would be really nice. Looking forward to playing pickleball.
What city was that again, Kevin?
Huntsville. Jim Truitt. It was $87,627 for 3, and that's the special concrete, courts wrapped, fence, all out. And we're coming up on ramp grant season, so don't have. I know what kind of projects they had last year. They were willing to fund, so you may be in good shape for a ramp grant for.
Last name again? Was it Jim?
Jim Truitt. Yeah, Truitt. Yeah, Mayor Truitt. Just the mayor in Huntsville, and it's been a long night. You made me real hungry talking about food trucks. Appreciate that. If the food truck people don't have the sense to be here in the parking lot on September 24th, serving hot dogs or whatever it is they have out there, then shame on them. Please try not to overregulate the food trucks. Half the entertainment of the food truck is the fact that it doesn't feel like it's all that regulated. We feel like kind of rebels when we're chasing food trucks. All right, so just try to fight the urge to get too big brothery on them and let them do their thing. Had a chance this past weekend at Chalk It Up to talk to one of the food truck owners, the kid that had the corn dog truck. And if you get a chance to talk to him, he's pretty low. He's local. He does a lot of the it's Marquesas. Marquesas corn dogs. They named it that because his wife was on Survivor Marquesas, and she came close to winning the $1 million. And he's a former news anchor, and he's an actor. He's in Yellowstone. Some of those, and it's just a really cool story. And when with those people that are attached to those, give them the opportunity to be a member of our community and do their thing, and let us enjoy chasing food trucks. Thank you.
Thank you. I like corn dogs better than filet mignon, so thank you.
Deep fried pickles. Deep fried pickles.
Council, can I make a volunteer? I'm working with Laurel Fawson on pickleball courts. So rather than several of us trying to contact Mayor Truitt, I will take that responsibility.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Wanted him with 5 calls.
Huh?
I wanted to give him 5 phone calls.
Bob Buswell, 962 East, 3025 North Ogden. I might have missed something, but is there going to be a fence around the detention basin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, it's in the agreement with the double lot. It listed in there.
What's that?
The fence is listed in the agreement with the double lot, so you can find it in the packet. So it's one of the 300 pages in the packet or whatever it is. So.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been a long night, right? But we're having fun. I had to take my son-in-law, Craig Speechley, 3452 North, 950 East, North Ogden City, resident. Okay. Had to take my son-in-law home, so I missed part of the conversation on the food trucks. I just wanted to mention my daughter lives in a planned community in Henderson, Nevada. Every Friday in their community, they have food truck night. It's a big event for the entire community, and half the fun is that multiple food trucks are available, so you got a great variety of food to choose from, and it's fun to go from food truck to food truck and pick and choose different items. And I thought I heard somebody say only one food truck. Is that?
That would be for a sporting event.
Okay. So there would be nights when you'd have multiple food trucks, right? Okay. That's all I was going to point out. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to council, mayor, staff comments. Councilman Turner?
First off, many of you know I do construction, and I still don't see the affinity of the gut trucks. I really, truly don't. You know, but that's okay. You guys can enjoy them. I'll tell you, you know, I've eaten off of them. Anyway. Just my only comment was, and Kevin alluded to it a little bit, the Chalk Art Festival. I don't know if any of you went down there. I'm assuming you can still see some of the chalk art on the parking lot down there. I haven't been down there since I took my family down there on Sunday, and we walked through them again. But fantastic volunteers. Kevin, how many thousands of people? I mean, there's a couple thousand people there. It seemed like all the time. It was a great event for the city, and I thought it was really fun. It actually started on Friday night. They had food trucks there Friday night, which I think that was the first time they'd had food trucks there on a Friday. And it was really a great event. And I want to thank all the people that volunteered. I don't know how many people volunteered, but there was probably a couple hundred, you know, that helped out with that from the community and stuff. And it went for a great cause, but it was just the residents that participated. Awesome. It was awesome artwork and stuff. And then they had some feature artists and stuff too. I think they had 6 feature artists, wasn't that right, Kevin? So Kevin did a great job. He was MCing for a while. You know, that guy has a voice for MCing.
I have a face for radio.
So, but thank you. That's it. Then I won't be here on the 24th.
Okay. Councilman Severie?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
You haven't done anything tonight. What are you talking about? Okay. Councilman Barker?
Yeah, I got one thing. I'm sure everybody's heard rumors. I've moved out of North Ogden City, and I live in unincorporated Weber County inside of North Ogden City boundaries. I am annexing my house into the city. I'm not doing anything wrong. So, just to get that rumor, we're not doing anything wrong. We had to hurry and push up our move date because the Historical Society wants to see my house. So all of you that want to come see my house, go to the Historical Society on September 7th to their home tours. You can come walk through my house, my parents' house. It's one of the nice historical homes. So I'm not dropping out of the race.
Are you going to have a food truck there?
Which one do you want?
It's going to be a really old food truck.
No. Just if you have any questions, come talk to me. We've done the research. We know we're doing everything legally.
Councilman Swanson?
Just a couple of things. Kevin, world's greatest corn dog truck. They sell the footlongers and they have honey on them. Oh, my goodness sakes.
I chased them on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I'm a Marquesas fan after this weekend.
That is, I'll have to give them a try.
He has a dill pickle. He has a pickle that he drills out the middle. He puts a hot dog up the center of it and deep fries it.
Oh, my God. Who comes up with these things? Can we fry it? Thanks for all you've done with that, Kevin, and with the Chalk It Up this weekend. Great stuff. There was an impassioned plea a little bit earlier tonight to bring us back to the proper role of government. It's always an interesting conversation when you have somebody say the proper role of government. Just looking at the audience members, and I know just about everybody that was here tonight, there's some pretty diametrically different views of what the proper role of government is here tonight. I mean, from one end of the spectrum to the other. So I think with all love and respect, Meg, you know I still like you. But I think we have to be careful as a community when we start trying to say that there is one proper role of government. Is it the Christian way? Is it the Muslim way? Is it the Mormon way? Is it the Baptist way? Is it the atheist way? Is it somebody who's a combination of something? There isn't one proper role of government. We all have a different feel for what that role is. And again, the spectrum just represented in the audience here tonight goes from absolutely one end to the other. And nobody's right, nobody's wrong. Everybody has their own opinion about what is the proper role of government. So I hope that we will try to tone down the rhetoric, the divisive rhetoric about arguing over what is and what isn't the proper role of government. It's going to, I mean, we have how many, 30, 40 people left in here? There's going to be 40 different views on what the proper role of government is. So I hope we'll just refrain from that. And our job as a council here is to represent everybody, not just one particular political group or political party or religious group or a religious people. You know, whatever orientation you can think of, we're here to represent everybody, all 20, close to 21,000 people now. It's our job to represent everyone to try to do what's best for the city, and honestly, that's what we're trying to do. So again, thanks for everybody being here. It has been a long night. It's been a tense night at times, and that's what we sign up for. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And thank you to staff that's been here sitting, and Matt's back there rubbing his eyebrows. Are we done yet, Phil? Are you going to stop talking? Cheryl's going to second the motion. I stopped. I'm done.
Councilwoman Stoker?
Just a couple of things. First, I'll chalk it up was really great. Sorry I missed your emceeing. I was looking forward to see how you did that, because that's probably a talent. I couldn't do it. I'm working on it. And also, Evan was there with his two kids. They did the chalk up run, so.
Cheryl beat us.
So that was a great run. And also, I don't know if most of you know that we did, as a council, we did work on raising the salaries of our police officers. We brought a lot of them in line with what they should be paid for the number of years they've served, and also some of their benefits in their 401ks. So we have been mindful of them and of our city employees, and we raised all of their rates to where they needed to be, so they weren't behind. So we wouldn't lose them to other cities who were paying more, because we do have great staff and city employees who keep our city running and keep us safe. So thank you to all of you. And that's all I have.
Thank you. John?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Annette? Hey. Evan? Jamie? Tiffany? Chief?
Just want to reiterate Cheryl's comments. The council did come to the plate with an open mind, and the employees of the city and where they stood in the market was obviously a priority. And they did a great job, and hopefully we can return the favor. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming this evening. It has been kind of a tense evening. We'll try to work out any differences that are still on display, and we'll move forward together as a community. Thank you all for your participation. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we do, does Dave have any comments? You know, I just did that because I saw you.
Sorry, Dave, you're hiding back there.
It's the glasses.
Yeah.
It's the beard.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? Second. Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.